Biggest third down in Bryce Young's career. You need 10. Play clock at 4. From the pocket. Launching downfield. Underthrown and intercepted. Keely Ringo has an escort down the sidelines. All the way to the end zone. And Georgia is going to conquer the Crimson Tide. And one more play for the Georgia defense. Georgia on the mountaintop. Demons be gone, and the drought is over. National champions at long last.
Kirby Smart last night paid homage to a famous Georgia radio call by saying there's going to be some property torn up in Indianapolis tonight. He didn't literally condone doing exactly that. But Kevin Bowen, what I did not realize is that was in fact the case, and it was on Capitol Avenue this morning on the drive down when all of a sudden around Methodist, it's like, whoa, there's a dude directing traffic. What's going on here?
Yeah, I'm like, I hope this isn't meaning there's a lot of Georgia fans inside of that hospital.
I mean,
last
good
night,
Lord, man.
If I'm going to judge the amount of UGA and barking Bulldogs I heard this weekend, yesterday, went to the Bullseye Event Center tailgate, which was an awesome atmosphere in there, a whole lot of Georgia fans, and then going to the game last night. Jake, that atmosphere, it was a pseudo-Georgia home game. I thought it was about 80-20 in there, and it's rare to call an SEC team an underdog or a feel-good story, but I actually think Georgia has a bit of that in that they hadn't won a national title since 1980. The walk-on quarterback finally beating Alabama on that grand of a stage.
Yeah, it was cool last night. Georgia winning the national championship, and as you heard Chris Fowler on ESPN, defeating the, let's face it, even though there have been other teams that have intermixed, the dominant program of the last decade and a half or so, Alabama. 33-19 Georgia winners last night. Good morning to you. My name is Jake Query. The other voice you just heard is that of Kevin Bowen. Mark Dykton is here as well. It is the alphabetically appropriately alliterated Kevin and Query program on 93.5, 107.5. The Fan. Plenty to talk about this morning, and I think the predominant conversation will be that of the Colts. But the reality, Kevin, is I don't know how many people expected it, but seeing Andrew Luck in the building last night surprised a lot of people, in particular just the overall physical appearance of Andrew Luck. To me, Andrew Luck looked like a guy that is perfectly content not playing football. I think that we get so conditioned to assume that the physical stats are required to play football at a big-time level is the norm for one's body. And so when people saw Andrew Luck, and I think they were shocked by it because he was not the physical specimen that we were used to seeing when he was the football player Andrew Luck. And I'm like, this looks like the architecture student Andrew Luck, which is perfully fine for Andrew Luck, right?
Yeah, head to your local coffee shop, and there's your barista right there in Andrew Luck last night. He looked extremely content. He sounded nerdy as hell, and I say that as a compliment to him. That dude is so comfortable in his own skin, Jake. And I know people will rip him for quitting on the game of football and whatever you want to go down that path. Again, he made that decision and was in there last night for the College Football Hall of Fame. Some very interesting names. We can get to that later. Peyton Manning also in the building. I thought, did it look like Peyton was in Irsay's suite? Was that what you were seeing there?
I did not notice it. I'll be honest with you. I saw very little of the game, so I did not see where Peyton Manning was. I know he was there.
By tiredness or by choice?
A little of both.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, I mean,
yeah.
To me, the national championship game isn't overly applicable. I went to bed around 11:30. I was tired. I had a long day yesterday, so it was 1918. I watched the better part of the first half, admittedly, but I wasn't like locked in, analyzing every play type thing. It was more background.
The first half would have put you to sleep, I think.
Yeah, there was, and I thought Alabama really kind of felt like they were in control, to be honest with you.
Right, I felt like 9-6 they were firmly in control. I also felt like watching two SEC programs play a 9-6 game is different than Northwestern Rutgers 9-6 at noon of halftime of a November game. But and look, I remember the SEC championship game. I think I picked Georgia in that game, flipped it for this one. This was not your normal Alabama. And look, they were still a damn good football team, but Georgia just has an incredible amount of depth. And I really thought the blocked field goal there in the third quarter finally gave Georgia that momentum and that jolt that they needed. 17-play drive for Bama, and they have that field goal blocked, and then boom, the first play after the field goal, James Cook rips off that 67-yard run, and it just seemed like that was the life that Georgia finally needed. And I think the injuries at receiver caught up to Alabama.
How about for Alabama? So I did see this. Alabama early in the game, it might have been, I don't know if it was the first drive. It was early in the game. Jamison Williams goes down. He catches the ball over the middle, goes down. A dynamic receiver for Alabama. You could tell, unfortunately, it was his knee. I mean, he grabbed his knee. It was a pretty obvious injury. And so I look it up, and I'm like, oh, man, they're going to have to, Nick Saban was saying, like, hey, we got other guys that are good players. They're going to have to step up a little bit. This was early in the second quarter, I should say. And, we're just going to bring a kid in that's the number 40 overall recruit in the country that's a freshman and a 5-star player. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just, this is not Indiana or Purdue. You know what I mean?
Sure, but at the same time, it is a guy that's being thrust into a national title stage, which is a little different. And I just think Georgia's roster is what we're used to with Alabama's roster, of just littered with all this depth, whereas I think Alabama is just not at its usual crazy peak self. It was a hell of an environment, though, Jake. I tweeted out at halftime, the SEC is just a different animal. And I know you've experienced it with going to Clemson games on that sort of stage. And maybe it was Georgia and the whole drought and them wanting to experience this and feeling like this was their best opportunity to indeed do that. But the speed, the hitting, the atmosphere, all of it, it's just a different level of college football.
Kevin, it's why I have always said, like, when people talk about, an SEC bias, yada, 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 and I'm like, guys, if you play in the SEC, I don't care who you are, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Kentucky, you're a mid-tier SEC team, the level of talent that you are playing against and the raucous environments that you're playing under. Tennessee, you go to Tennessee and
100,000.
Yeah, 100,000 who've been drinking all day, raucous. I mean, the environment of college football in the SEC under the lights at night, it's just completely different than anything in the Big Ten, Pac-10, or Pac-12, ACC. There's just nothing comparable to it.
Speaking of drinking all day, the show ends yesterday at 10, and no, I am
You
not.
went drinking?
Well, I know that kind of sounds like I headed straight to the local pub, but I go out to go over to the JW Marriott to get my media pass for last night. So I'm walking, and I see some Georgia fans just looking so cold and having no idea where they're going. They're all scurried around an iPhone. Is this where we want to go, this and that? I'm like, all right, I'll put on a Civic hat. I'm like, hey, can I help you guys? Are you looking for somewhere to go? And they're like, yeah, we want to go get, and I think what they say is brunch. I'm like, you got padded shoes over here, and you've got some spots up on Mass Ave, and Lincoln Square, and what is it? First Watch, I think, is biased as well. Like, and they're like, oh no, we didn't say brunch, man. We want a bar. What bar is open at 10 a.m. on a Monday? And I'm like, boy, they are revving this thing up.
I told you, man. SEC
early in the morning there. And sure enough, I think of the 67,000 in there, Jake, I thought it was 80-20 Georgia fan. And that lower bowl, I mean, it did not, no one sat down in that lower bowl throughout any portion of that game. And it was one of those rare environments of just like you get in there 45 minutes before kickoff. And it reminded me of what I experienced in London when the Colts played there a handful of years ago. Everyone is in the stadium. I mean, ready to go, liquored up, lathered up. And
lathered up,
and just a great story with a walk-on quarterback in Stetson Bennett, making some critical plays for them in that fourth quarter, and Georgia pulling away for the 33-18 win.
Speaking of critical plays in the fourth quarter, Pacers did not have enough of them last night. Boston winning 101-98. Lance Stevenson had a couple of opportunities late in the game and in overtime to tie or take the lead with some step-back threes. Couldn't get them to go. I mean, good looks. Couldn't get him to go.
Domas Sabonis
had 23. Yeah, it was an ugly game. Went into overtime, and then in the overtime, Boston's got some weapons still. I mean, the Celtics have not been probably where a couple of years ago you would thought Boston would be right now.
Well, they have the two best players still. I mean, Tatum and Brown.
Correct. Listen, Jaylen Brown can play. Jason Tatum's a fascinating case to me because he looked like he was, I thought a couple of years ago, Tatum looked like he was right on the verge of ascending into the upper stratosphere of NBA player, and he's kind of hung around in that, like I always say, he's not Boardwalk Park Place, but he's kind of hung around in those green and red properties on the Monopoly board. And I thought he was ascending to the next level. But, nonetheless, for the Pacers, at some point, Kevin, and maybe we're well past it, but at some point you got to just say to yourself, if it ain't going to happen and they're not going to gel,
it's not happening, Jake. The Western Conference road trip starts Monday. I think today's a fun day for the Pacers. We are now less than a month away from the trade deadline. Here we go.
So all of a sudden it gets interesting, right?
And Miles Turner with just the great cryptic social media post. I saw some of his management team had some media posts last night after the game tagging Paul George. Have you ever seen the movie Get Out?
Yes, I have seen that.
I guess a reference to that and the tagging of Paul George. And I'm like, Miles Turner last night, and Jake, I don't watch the game. I was, again, at the national title game. But I'm looking at this box score. 23 minutes for Turner, 2 of 7, 0 of 4 from 3, 2 turnovers, 4 fouls, and we're acting like he's, Joel Embiid being benched late in the game. Like, it seems like ever since Turner made those comments, Jake, I want a bigger role, I deserve a bigger role, the opportunities that he's gotten to earn that role with all of these guys out, Malcolm Brogdon, Karis LeVert still out, Miles Turner is just a ho-hum player. And right now,
there are teams that are interested in him.
Right, but like he's chirping like he means more or should mean more.
Right.
And I'm just kind of sick and tired of it. And I have not been an anti Turner. If I was going to trade one of them, I would trade Turner over Sabonis. But hearing this whining and seeing the social media stuff, and if you're going to talk, I'm fine with it. Some semblance of backing it up, and he hasn't even sniffed that. There were moments last week playing the Nets, we're just late in the game that they're putting James Harden on him in the post, and he can't take advantage of it. Like, you're getting opportunities, and you're just not doing anywhere near to the level. So it'll be interesting to see, and hopefully, and that's my thoughts on it. This is the last month for Miles Turner in a Pacers uniform.
Joel Erickson, by the way, to talk about the Colts will join us coming up on the program at 9 a.m. There's going to be plenty of Colts discussion. I would imagine the predominant part of it over the course of this morning, Kevin. And I think yesterday people were still, we had really good conversations about what took place in Jacksonville yesterday. Then you kind of start to peel off. Remember those, when I was a kid, everybody and their brother every company had the tear-off of the day calendars. I mean, obviously now with the iPhone, it's kind of irrelevant, but, the Far Side or a sports quiz every day or whatever, little tear-off the day.
I had one of those growing up.
So, the Monday is kind of tearing off what happened on Sunday, and then now you kind of tear off of where do we go from here? And I think in the Colts case, Kevin, it becomes people analyzing, which we will today, where do the Colts go from here? And the question is, the knee-jerk right off of a loss is, where do they go from here? Is you got to, drastic changes. And then you kind of calm down and relax a little bit and say, okay, let's be a little more level-headed about this. Where do they go from here? And that is when you settle down and you realize, do they need major changes or minor tweaks, the Colts?
Well, I think they need some major addressing at critical spots. Head coach and GM, that's not going to happen. But Jim Irsay's comments to Mike Chappell yesterday, I thought were very, very interesting. We'll get to those here in just a bit. But the owner, calling a meeting with Chris Ballard and Frank Reich when they got home Sunday night. Come to West 56. We're not wasting any time there. That's very un-Irsay-like to do that, again, the same day as the season ending. A multiple-hour meeting with both of those guys, backing both of them, but stressing to them, and we'll see what the actions end up being, Jake, but stressing to them, at least with words, that some changes are needed. And to me, there's kind of 4 big changes the Colts could have. Well, Ballard and Reich aren't going anywhere, so that takes 2 off the board. So in my opinion, the other 2 changes that I would think be of significant note would be your quarterback and Matt Eberflus. And if you look at Irsay's words, and we'll get into that here in a little bit, I mean, he is saying that significant changes are coming. That, to me, would mean either Carson Wentz and or Matt Eberflus.
Here's the question, though. Of those two, one of the two is easier to replace, and that would be the defensive coordinator. Matt Eberflus is a guy, though, Kevin, 4 days ago, we were talking about leaving here for another head coaching job.
Yeah, I'm
not saying that's going to be the case now, but what I'm saying is, like,
I never put any stock into that.
You fall that much out of favor, though, in the course of one game?
Again, I come back to making difficult decisions to get, to steal the Frank Reich analogy, to get higher on the mountain. And I think the Irsay quotes are very interesting. When you hear what he had to say, Jake, I don't know what else qualifies as significant changes.
Right.
And it's probably a move that I would make more so than I think they might make. I will believe accountability when I see it, because I think it's been preached a lot more than acted upon over at West 56.
I think if you make a change at the quarterback position, that is an indictment on the head coach.
Totally fair. Totally fair. I would not disagree with that at all. I thought Frank Reich's comments, separate from Jim Irsay, I thought Frank Reich's comments yesterday on Carson Wentz were interesting as well. I know to the casual fan, they might not seem like a whole lot, but we'll try to put some context around it with Irsay, or with Reich's past comments on Jacoby Brissett and Phillip Rivers as well. We'll continue to take your calls, 317-239-1070. Joel Erickson from the Star, get his thoughts on Frank Reich's comments yesterday, and Jim Irsay as well. He's Jake Query. I'm Kevin Bowen, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
This was a deep pantsing of this Colts team.
You just saw the worst loss in the history of the Colts franchise.
That was an embarrassing performance, the worst loss all time here.
If you're talking about it,
Irsay need to grow up here and start clearing house.
we're talking about it.
But you knew what was on the line.
It's hard to make good quarterback when they just have zero weapons.
Well, you can't fire Reich. It's crazy. My ass, you can't.
Your home for Indy Sports, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Come rain or shine, high winds or mild breezes, blue skies or gray, it's a great time to consider getting vaccinated against COVID-19. Sponsored by BioNTech and Pfizer.
It's CarX Tire and Auto, 14 Central Indiana locations, helping you keep winter road ready. To find that location nearest you, log on, CarX.com today.
I'm Ed, Shane Company's lead diamond buyer. One thing I'd love our customers to know is that no fewer than 5 sets of expert eyes examine your diamond. No other jeweler does this, and this is how we can offer you the most beautiful diamonds. We're always traveling to the diamond capitals of the world, where our long-standing relationships allow us to look at the diamonds as they're coming off the stonecutter's wheel. We get first pick of the prettiest diamonds in every grade. We negotiate the best price and pay in cash to get you the best value. All of our diamonds are conflict-free and natural. Unlike lab-grown diamonds, natural diamonds have consistently maintained or increased in value over time. There's so many reasons to feel confident about choosing a Shane Company diamond. No other jeweler works as hard or cares as much as we do. With the largest selection of diamonds in every price range, you'll easily find a stunning diamond that speaks to you.
Now you have a friend in the jewelry business. Shane Company and ShaneCo.com.
Did you know Amazon provides ways of working that fit your lifestyle? They know you value your time outside of work, juggling family, school, friends, or other activities. That's why they offer a variety of shifts that work for you. There are full-time, part-time, and even temporary opportunities that can work with your schedule, with great starting pay and sign-on bonuses. If you want a career that fits and adapts to your lifestyle, head to Amazon.com/apply. Amazon is a proud equal opportunity employer.
Home values have skyrocketed.
And Golden Oak Lending can save you money with their low 1.875% rate.
I'm James Hawkins, president of Golden Oak. With our low rates and your increased equity, you can make home improvements or pay off debt.
Woo-hoo! Plus, skip your next 2 mortgage payments. Call 317-706-GOLD today.
Golden Oak Lending cured my blues.
NMLS 114937. 1.875% fixed. 2.952% APR. FHA 15-year mortgage with 20% equity and approved credit.
Bet on more than the final score with one game parlay bet at BetMGM. One game parlay is an exciting feature designed to help you make selections within a single game from over 400 bet types, including team and player props. Log into your BetMGM account and create your best parlay before the game starts. New to BetMGM? You can sign up today and make your first bet risk-free up to $1,000 with the bonus code THEFAN. That's all one word, capital T, capital F. You can place one-game parlay bets on football, basketball, and more. Plus, you'll earn M Life Rewards that you can redeem for rooms and dining at any MGM resort. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. Must be 21 years of age or older to wager. Indiana only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable free bets or site credit. Free bets expire 7 days from issuance. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-9-WITH.
Wealth isn't simply about money. It's more than just the numbers in your portfolio or your bank account. Wealth is all the everyday things that money enables you to do, the goals you're after, things you want to accomplish, and the life you want to lead. So how do you get there? Tune in this weekend for Everyday Wealth with Soledad O'Brien and Gene Chatsky, presented by Edelman Financial Engines. Each week, award-winning journalist Soledad O'Brien and personal finance expert Gene Chatsky will explore how our financial decisions shape our everyday lives. They'll be joined by Edelman Financial Engine's wealth planners and other guests to demystify challenges like tax-efficient investing, retirement planning, and more. They'll share knowledge and tools to manage your finances today and build wealth for tomorrow. Join the conversation. Everyday Wealth airs each weekend and will be available on major podcast platforms. For airtimes, visit everydaywealth.com.
This is for the men who never settle, the ones who believe only quitters end a game in a tie, the type of guys who choose the bar with the biggest TVs to overcompensate for theirs at home. This is the Lodge mentality. This is Twin Peaks.
Are you a fan of Twin Peaks? Sign up for their e-club to stay up to date on all things Twin Peaks and score free stuff. Signing up is easy. Visit TwinPeaksRestaurant.com/Peaks-Club. Twin Peaks. Eats, drinks, scenic views.
Hey, it's JMV. If you're not saving for your child's education needs with a Forum Credit Union Sprout matching account, you're missing out. This account is the best way to supplement 529 savings accounts. It matches your savings as you can earn an extra $100 every year, plus a great dividend rate. Stop putting it off. Make 2022 the year to really step up the savings for your child's education. Learn more at forumcu.com or stop by any branch location today.
This Sports Center update on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan is presented by Big O Tires, the team you trust.
We'll begin with college football, even though obviously it is not applicable to local teams. It did have local flavor last night at Lucas Oil Stadium. Congratulations to the Bulldogs of Georgia. Kevin, I dug deep into the closet to break out my Georgia t-shirt.
I saw that.
Just for today.
So you had that in there. That was not purchased this weekend?
Can't you tell by looking at it?
I don't know. It looks solid. The letters look nice and ripe.
Yeah, they kind of do, actually.
You didn't buy that to the team store?
Yeah.
Down the street?
I did not. I've had this
$30 t-shirt.
I think I told you, Lars Tate was my first ever football hero when I was in the 5th grade, and he was a senior at North Central High School. He then went on to become a running back for Georgia. So I always kind of liked Georgia. Bought the t-shirt somewhere along the line. But the Bulldogs now, first national championship since 1980. They find themselves a 9-2 favorite for the 2022 national championship. This is, of course, completely irrelevant. I'd like to know what they were ranked a year ago in terms of the odds for this season, because they are the ones that got it done. Would you like to guess, Kevin Bowen, the other 3 teams that are listed in terms of the top 4 odds to win the national title next year?
Ohio State, Alabama, and Clemson.
Alabama at 5-2, Georgia at 9-2, Ohio State at 7-1. Put your entire 401k on the Buckeyes to win it all next year. No one's touching them. Clemson at 12-1. Oklahoma 15-1 along with Michigan, and then Notre Dame is at 25-1 for next year. Kevin, you were in the building last night. You said lots of Bulldog red, right?
Lots. Obviously some Alabama colors, very similar, but Georgia brought it. I thought about 80-20 in that building. An unbelievable environment. Really cool to experience that, and I hope the Georgia contingent certainly had fun last night and paid our service workers handsomely.
Last night in the NBA, the Boston Celtics 101-98 winners over the Pacers. Lance Stevenson had 14. Domas Sabonis 11 points and 23 boards along with 10 assists and a triple-double. But it was Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. No surprise, the big combo for Boston. It was too much. 26 and 15 for Jaylen Brown, who had big shots down the stretch and into the overtime. Jason Tatum, 24 points and 12 rebounds. Other winners last night in the NBA included Charlotte, Detroit, the New York Knicks, who defeated San Antonio, Philadelphia, Portland, and Cleveland, all winning last night. Purdue's game against Michigan was, of course, postponed due to COVID-19. Boilermakers still at 13-2. Indiana sitting at 12-3. They will be at Iowa coming up on Thursday. Meanwhile, Butler just also had a game canceled recently, didn't they, against Connecticut?
Yeah, and that's been rescheduled. It's coming up here pretty soon. I think the Big East, they've kind of squeezed several games for Butler into a short stretch here. Purdue did fall to number 7, by the way, in the polls after their loss to Wisconsin.
Butler at Georgetown, by the way, on Thursday. You know, one team we haven't talked about at all, and I'm only mentioning it because I realize we've never talked about them, but IUPUI is now 1-12.
Bad at basketball.
I mean, they lost last night to Illinois, Chicago.
I think Greg Rakestraw does those games, and I think about him nightly.
I feel, I always felt bad because I wanted so badly for that to work at the Coliseum.
Yeah,
just the history of the Coliseum, and it's a cool venue.
And you would think, if you get the 3rd or 4th, I don't know, the 5th or 6th best player in the city of Indianapolis, surrounding counties every year, you could build something. Their one win is over the Ball Company this year. Remember that? That was on a pop quiz earlier this year.
Oh, yeah, Spalding.
That's right. Their one win. Frank Reich, a meeting on Sunday with Jim Irsay, Chris Ballard. Here was Reich describing that multi-hour meeting just hours after they had lost to the Jags.
With the resolve, we're gonna get better. We're gonna get better. And we walked out of there saying we got a lot of the right pieces in place. I mean, my goodness, I love our players, respect our players, and if I'm a Colts fan, I'm fired up I'm incredibly disappointed about the way this season ended, but I understand that there's some makings here of a very good football team.
Okay, the pieces they have in place, Kevin. To you, those pieces are what? If you're Frank Reich and you're listing, if Jim Irsay says, I want you to list for me the pieces that we have in place that you're thrilled with.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, Braden Smith, DeForest Buckner, Darius Leonard. I think your safety duo, Julian Blackman, Kari Willis, Kenny Moore. Although the Kenny Moore I saw the last 2 weeks of the season, I don't know what that was. I think I don't know. Maybe I'm forgetting some people, but
I think there are two guys that you mentioned there that, if need be, and I don't know if they're in positions that parlay you into other pieces, but two pieces there that I think are fungible, for lack of a better phrase. Ryan Kelly, I think we've seen that you have somebody on the roster that, if you want to go in a cost-cutting measure, is a route you can go.
Yeah.
And look, I like
Our
Ryan
call with
Kelly.
Janine yesterday. She brought that up.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was a great point.
And then he's a tremendous talent. But Quentin Nelson plays a position that I don't know that you overspend to maintain a tremendous talent at it, if you had to use that money to get yourself moderate talent elsewhere. Those are the two pieces that I look at. I'm not saying the Colts are going to make wholesale changes, but if they were, those are two that I could see trying to parlay.
Comes back to roster building. We talked about it yesterday. Those names I mentioned, they're not at the most impactful positions in today's NFL. Sounds like we'll hear from Chris Ballard later in the week, tentatively Thursday for that. So his season-ending presser should come then.
So, I look at it and I wonder also, let me ask you this, Kevin. We can get more into this on the other side, but Jim Irsay, is he the kind of owner that knee-jerk reacts and calls a meeting and puts down indictments on Ballard and Reich, or is it a more laid back, hey guys, let's just kind of see where we are here and assess and take our time with this?
Yeah, that is a question we will answer here when we come back. I think a little bit more the former in what we heard from him yesterday. Jim Irsay's comments, we'll let you know about those next here on Kevin and Query, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
The Pacers and Celtics face off again at the Fieldhouse tomorrow evening at 6:30 on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Wow, I've got a whole 5 minutes before my next call. What should I do? Grab a snack? Nah. Text with mom? That's more than a 5-minute proposition. I have been looking at getting a new bank account. Is that even possible?
Can't believe you have extra time? You won't believe what you can do with it. Open a Regions checking account online in as little as 5 minutes. Then enjoy award-winning service and banking tools and tech that help you live in the moment. Learn more at regions.com/live in the moment. Regions Bank, member FDIC.
With a free offer from Jiffy Lube and Pennzoil, here's owner Steve Sanner.
As we approach another Indiana winter, your neighborhood Jiffy Lube shops are offering free winter safety checks. No appointment and no purchases necessary. Just stop into any Jiffy Lube and we will check your tires, brakes, battery, wiper blades, fluid levels, and answer any questions you may have about dashboard lights or any strange noises your car may be making. It's all part of Jiffy Lube's focus on becoming your trusted source for preventive maintenance. Cars and trucks are made so well these days that all you need to do is take care of them and they will last a long time. 200,000 miles is the new 100,000 miles. So stop into Jiffy Lube today. No appointment and no purchase necessary. And let our trained technicians do a free winter safety check to give you the confidence to make it through another Indiana winter.
Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985, proudly features Pennzoil. It's not just oil, it's Pennzoil.
You know you work well together as a team. Now take your team to Royal Penn and make your next corporate event fun and affordable. Royal Penn Leisure Centers offer the perfect combination of food and fun for your next group event. At Royal Penn, you don't have to be a super athlete to have a blast. Everyone's on the team when you're bowling. Bowling is a fun, affordable way to socialize and compete with your colleagues. Create team spirit without meetings, reports, or deadlines. Just good times. And keep in mind, it's always cool in our non-smoking facilities. To get the ball rolling, call Royal Penn today at 465-8484 and we'll organize your next corporate event. Get ready to trade in your wingtips and heels for a pair of bowling shoes and have fun bowling.
Set them up, knock them down, send them flying, spinning round.
For more information, call 465-8484 or look us up at royalpen.com.
Royal Penn, bowling, bowling.
At Kroger, fresh groceries are our thing, so we check your delivery order for freshness at every step from farm to store and pick and pack every veggie in your free pickup order with care, because we treat your food the way we'd want ours to be treated. We're fresh every day, so shop anyway. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Free pickup on orders of $35 or more. Restrictions may apply.
Get more ways to save at the Buy 5 or More Save $1 each sale. Just buy 5 or more participating items and save $1 each with card. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Hey, this is Lisa Stofan. Heard the Mark Patrick weight loss hypnosis hype? Well, I attended because my father stopped smoking with hypnosis. Hypnosis eliminated my desire for soda and fast food, made me want to exercise, and I lost 60 pounds in 6 months. My energy level exploded. I went to another session to deal with some other problem foods, and I lost another 10 pounds. In fact, I brought my husband. He lost weight. More important, cholesterol and blood pressure improved. My friend went, and she lost 20 pounds in the first 2 months. So does Mark Patrick hypnosis work? Oh yeah, it works. Nothing has changed my life more. Well, except maybe my husband. He's so proud of me. Makes me cry.
Join Mark Patrick seminars and lose the weight or stop smoking guaranteed for only $49.99. Hypnosis to destroy unwanted cravings. January 20th at the Holiday Inn Hotel in Carmel. Weight loss seminar 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. Stop smoking seminar 8 to 10 p.m. And January 22nd at the La Quinta Inn and Suites in Indianapolis. Weight loss seminar 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Stop smoking seminar 2 to 4 p.m. Registration begins 30 minutes before seminar.
Hi, I'm Ryan Kelly with thehomeloanexpert.com. If you thought the real estate market was hot last year, just wait. It's only January, and we are pre-approving record numbers of borrowers looking to buy a home. The competition is going to be fierce. And if you're even considering, even thinking about buying a home this year, let's talk. Let's get you pre-approved today. The 5-minute loan approval only available at thehomeloanexpert.com. The Home Loan Expert LLC, NMLS number 1326241.
You're listening to Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
25 minutes before the hour of 8 o'clock. Good morning to you. My name is Jake Query. Kevin Bowen, the other voice you hear on this program. Mark Dykton running the big board for us, talking about just kind of restructuring and the construction of things when it comes to the Colts. Public service announcement. I'd mentioned this earlier. For those of you who work downtown and might be headed downtown, if you're driving down Capitol, you're in for a rude awakening around Methodist, where all of a sudden there's a guy in the middle of the road directing traffic. Capitol's closed for a little bit. You want to take one of the different arteries into downtown. In terms of the construction or reconstruction, Kevin, of the Colts, you know, I did not anticipate that on Capitol this morning. Do you think Chris Ballard and Frank Reich anticipated Jim Irsay being as direct as he was? Take me through what you think took place in their meeting after their loss to Jacksonville.
Just real quick, Jake, before we get into the Jim Irsay stuff, I do want to give a shout out while I'm thinking about it to whether it's Chris Gall, Ryan Vaughn, Susan Boffman, everyone affiliated with putting on the College Football National Championship. And I know there are hundreds, probably more than 1,000 of volunteers that are very unsung, very behind the scenes, seeing people clean up this morning, driving into downtown. I know it's an incredible effort, and hopefully we're able to host that game again, because I thought it was a really, really cool experience last night and all weekend long down here. Okay, so the Irsay comments, and again, credit to Mike Chappell, Jake. He was able to get the owner with him. You know, we would have Chap on, but I believe Chap has told me, Kevin, I don't really listen to the morning show because I'm not up before 10 a.m. So unfortunately, I don't think Chappie is up at this hour. But here are a couple quotes that I will read off, Jake, and I would like for you to react. So this was Irsay just talking about the urgent situation regarding the need to have a meeting with Frank Reich and Chris Ballard. This was after they landed from Jacksonville on Sunday night. Irsay says this: "It was an urgent situation because of the gravity of the things that had transpired. It's clear that we did not have the right stuff. We were not able to perform at the level we were certainly capable of performing to. I thought it was important that we meet immediately because of the gravity of what transpired, us being left out of the playoffs and losing in games, and we were 8.5-point favorites and 15-point favorites on the road. That's unacceptable. In Jacksonville, we weren't even competitive."
That's pretty brutal. It's pretty direct, right? And if I'm Frank Reich, notably, I'm not overly comfortable with that, because that to me sounds like, I'm going to paraphrase, okay? That's, to me, in a paraphrase, sounds like the following. Go ahead and let's read it again and interpret, okay? Read that phrase again, break it up a little bit.
"I thought it was important that we meet immediately because of the gravity of what transpired. Us being left out of the playoffs and losing in games, and we were 8.5-point favorites and 15-point favorites. That's unacceptable. In Jacksonville, we weren't even competitive."
We choked, and there's no excuse why we went down there and embarrassed everybody. I'm embarrassed by it, and we needed to meet immediately because I wanted answers now. Not next week, not a month from now. I want them now. What happened? And that, to me, when you in particular consider that Jim Irsay had been promoting the fact, including on these airwaves, that he felt like they were built to be able to make a run, and that there was potentially something special in this group. I think he thought the personnel was there. And they went down, and in 2 games, and he points out that they were favored, and they lost both those games, one being at home. I interpret that, Kevin, as, look, the ingredients were there, and I really thought that we had enough to come out and put together a really nice dinner, and you brought me some TV dinner crap. What's going on? And that's an indictment on the guy who is in charge of cooking the meal, and that's Frank Reich.
No, you like TV dinners, though. That's kind of your thing, right?
Healthy choice. They're good. That chicken parmesan's good.
Okay.
They're fast and easy.
Those comments, I agree with you, Jake, are very direct. Now, having said that, Irsay later backed Frank Reich and Chris Ballard in a big, big way. He said this to Mike Chappell again, Irsay, on moving on from either Ballard or Reich. That was never in question. As an owner, I can say I have the utmost faith in Frank and Chris. These two guys are excellent, and I hope one day they can follow the path of Bill Polian and Tony Dungy, who I hired and became Hall of Famers.
Say that one more time.
Again, this is asked about moving on from either Ballard or Reich. That was never in question. As an owner, I can say I have the utmost faith in Frank and Chris. Those two guys are excellent, and I hope one day they can follow the path of Bill Polian and Tony Dungy, who I hired and became Hall of Famers.
By the way, on a totally different subject, I've always heard that there's always been that conjecture that maybe he didn't necessarily hire Bill Polian, but that was brought on by the league. But that's a whole different talk show for another day, I guess.
Can we say that for July?
Yeah, exactly. Vote of confidences in Kevin in professional sports have always been almost kind of like a wink, wink, nod, right? Like does a vote of confidence really mean that much? How often do you hear, especially when it comes to coaches, I am fully confident. I think that in any walk of life, no matter what profession you're in, when you are in a managerial or an operational position, part of your job is to build people up. And part of your job is to make people to get the best out of their performance, to have them believe in what they are doing. That is 90% the battle. So if you are Jim Irsay, it's in your best interest for the first thing that you want to know is, okay, I want to see how these guys perform and put together a roster or make the changes necessary or whatever else. But I need them to have total confidence and security in their feeling to see how they react. So it's his job. I shouldn't say Jim Irsay's job. He doesn't really have a job. He's the owner, right? But his role, I think, is to first and foremost eliminate hesitation on he wants to see how they're going to react and how they're going to make decisions. So the best way to get a true feel for their reactionary ability is to make sure that they are doing it without feeling like they're walking through a landmine field and letting them know, listen, I'm evaluating you, but I want to evaluate you as if you are doing this without any hesitation in what you're doing, and then let me see how you react to it. Do I think that means that Frank Reich and Chris Ballard both are completely safe? They better not be. Now, that's not to say that I'm calling for either one of them for their job, but if you are always looking to improve, right? If Bill Belichick announced tomorrow, like, you know what, I just always liked Monument Circle, and I think it'd be cool to live at the JW Marriott, then wouldn't you make that move?
God, that'd be great for us.
You know what I mean? Wouldn't you? So what I'm saying is you never rule out the possibility of an upgrade. I'm not saying but you never rule it out, right? So do you think Chris Ballard and Frank Reich are 100% safe?
In Irsay's eyes, yeah. Yeah, I do. Those comments right there piss me off, to be honest with you, Jake. You know, I'm not going to act like I have some vast vocabulary. I certainly don't. But he just used the word excellent to describe a duo that has one playoff win, no division titles.
Right.
And you look at the last 3 years, Jake, and where you finished in the AFC. And just a reminder for everyone, there are 16 teams in the AFC. You have finished 10th, 7th, and 8th. That is average, not excellent. I would have liked to have seen or heard a little bit more of a public accountability, frankly, hot seat type answer from Irsay. And to me, when I hear that comment, Jake, I think to myself, is he worried about egg on the face knowing he gave a contract extension to both of those guys last season? And right now, as it did when you did it in August, and right now, it continues to look laughable.
Let me tell you the one thing, Kevin, that I'm tired of hearing about. I'm tired of it. From fans, media, whoever it may be. Andrew Luck was in the building last night. And I saw a lot of people, Andrew Luck, that don't even let him in the building. I can't believe they'd even let him in the Colts house.
Well, he was serving coffee in the press box.
That's right. They actually noticed him. They're like, did you see this guy that's volunteering over here and mixing up lattes? Can we get him on an interview?
There were some really funny responses to what Luck looked like. Oh, that guy mixed my paint at Lowe's the other day.
Right.
Just some hilarious comments.
But here's the thing. I get it. I mean, we don't need to sit here and rehash that Andrew Luck walked out on his team, whatever, right? How long ago was that? And I mentioned this yesterday several times.
Yeah, August 2019, for those keeping track of it.
So I looked it up, okay? In August 2019, the Tampa Bay Bucks were not being quarterbacked by Tom Brady. You can go on and on and on, right? The New England Patriots were not being quarterbacked by Mac Jones. I'm trying to think of other teams that 6 of the 12 teams that are still alive have quarterbacks that were not their quarterback in August of 2019. The NFL is about making adjustments to things that happen around you. I understand in 19 that was a curveball. There have been 3 quarterbacks since then. You've had plenty of time to figure it out or build your roster in such a way, as some teams do, that the quarterback position, everything is not resting on it. And if you built your team that way, like the Colts did with Carson Wentz, the Colts built a roster. Chris Ballard, what's he always said, Kevin? Over and over and over and over and over. Chris Ballard wakes up in the morning and his mailman brings him the mail and says, how are you today? And he says, good, I'm building a football team not relying on one player.
Yeah.
And then he goes to Starbucks and somebody says, how would you like your coffee? Venti. I'm building a football team not dependent upon one player.
And the mailman says, have you watched the 2022 NFL and what works in today's league?
And then they say to him, that's all well and good, but you went out and got one player who then all of a sudden didn't have the pieces around him. In other words, if you're building a roster that's not completely reliant on your quarterback, then your roster should be strong enough that you don't need your quarterback to be a hero. And Carson Wentz, quite frankly, is not heroic enough for the rest of the roster. So it collapsed on him. I just think the Andrew Luck excuse at this point is tired. It's time to wad it up and throw it away.
No, I could not agree more with that. Jake Irsay's definition of excellent and my definition of excellent couldn't be more different. The comments that he, again, and these are to Mike Chappell yesterday, that he did make that I sit here and think, are this. One thing that's clear is changes need to be made, Irsay said, and they will be made. We also realize we have to do it cautiously with a thorough evaluation and full discussion in a calm environment. It's not an emotional thing at all. It's all about evaluating the whole program, and clearly changes need to be made. When you hear that, Jake Query, you think what?
Here's the thing. And I'm not to go too long-winded here or Freudian on it, but I was watching the Colts when Bob Irsay was alive and was here when they first moved here, right? I was watching the Colts when Jim Irsay was the general manager and was hanging out at Hillcrest and was giving away tickets. Super, super nice to everybody.
Hillcrest Golf Course?
Yeah.
That's a great golf
and
course.
pool. He was I don't know if he still is.
My father-in-law belongs there.
Remember there when they first came here. Bob Irsay was known for, calling in plays from the press box and walking in the locker room after games and firing tight ends right there in front of everybody and whatever else, and not realizing on Tuesday what he'd done. And Jim Irsay witnessed that, Kevin, and I think Jim Irsay saw, this is what I don't want to be. And I think that Jim Irsay has taken a tremendous pride and passion on running and operating his football team in a way that is seen as the antithesis of the knee-jerk the way that his dad did. So I think that Jim Irsay internally begs himself to be more patient and rational in his decisions. So when he comes out and says things like changes need to be made, that is him almost with a governor on the accelerator. He's holding himself back, but a little bit spills out over the meniscus because it is so glaring to him. He is wanting it known. Listen, this is unacceptable. That's as close as he's going to get to his dad of walking into the locker room and just
So it's
walking up
not
to guys.
Ballard Reich. Does that mean it's Wentz? Does that mean it's Eberflus? Does that mean he says to Chris Ballard, you've got to use free agency?
I think Jim Irsay's, I think it's passive aggressive. I don't know that he's saying it's A, B, C, or D. He is saying, I know what it is. I think he's asking Chris Ballard the same question you're asking me. I think he's asking Chris Ballard, what do you make of these comments, Chris? Who do you think I'm talking about? And he's putting the challenge on Chris Ballard to figure that out. Does that make sense?
It does. It's probably unfair to put you in this position, Jake, but whatever. You got your crystal ball over there, and it's March 30th.
Okay.
Wentz, Eberflus, Ballard's approach to free agency. Those three. What changes do we see, if any at all?
Well, Eberflus, I think, is probably, and I think there's a little bit of scapegoat that goes on in that.
Right.
But that's probably the first, because that's the easiest. It's the cleanest. It's the easiest to go out and find yourself a replacement towards. And it makes for, to the eye and to the fan base, it presents the biggest amount of change when in reality, how big a change is it?
I'm doing something.
Correct. That's exactly right. I think Wentz, but here's the thing. The biggest question that I have, Kevin, and I'll turn around and reflect, I'll rubber the question right back to you. I think the biggest change that needs to be made may be Carson Wentz. But if that's the case, and if you've already decided to pull the plug on that, and Jim Irsay knows that, look, he's on the hook for $20 million or whatever for next year, right? And then the Colts have that out. So they're kind of stuck with him. But if Carson Wentz is not the long-term direction they're going, is that an indictment on Ballard or Reich? Because one of them is going to fall on that sword if Jim Irsay knows, I'm in a pickle here with a quarterback that's going to be making $22 million or whatever it is, and then we got to decide what we're doing contractually.
It's more Reich, but at the same time, it's not like Ballard didn't have a say in that decision. I think at times we absolve him too much from that. I think Colin brings up a good point. He goes, making changes, in my opinion, could also mean bringing weapons in. That has been the biggest weakness of this team in the Ballard era. It's probably easier to keep Carson and provide more support around him. Again, it would be very against what Ballard has done in his tenure. The wide receiver tight end position, especially in free agency, has not received a ton of attention. So I do think that could probably be put on the changes list. But, I mean, those quotes, Jake, on the surface, one thing that's clear is changes need to be made. It's not an emotional thing at all. It's about evaluating the whole program, and clearly changes need to be made. You look at those quotes on paper, those say something.
What would you do, Kevin, if all of us, if Jeff Smolian came out tomorrow and said, in terms of evaluating our 1070 or 107 the 5, the fan roster of talent, clearly changes need to be made? What would you think to yourself?
Yeah, I'd probably cry.
I mean, you wouldn't be overly confident, right?
Dust off the old LinkedIn page. Would you make one for once?
I don't know how to do that.
And it goes back to the point I was making a little bit yesterday, Jake, and I know we got a lot of callers that we can get to as well here, and the Frank Reich comments on Carson Wentz, I thought, from yesterday were very different than what we've heard. And again, these Reich comments on Wentz came after this Irsay meeting. But I go back to this, Jake. Frank Reich is a first-year head coach. Chris Ballard is a first-year general manager. Deviating, adjusting, altering their plan, their blueprint is like a no-brainer to me. when you're in those roles. And it seems like Ballard's stubbornness to not, in particular, and I think Reich falls into it. Reich, I think, is just more of his conviction like no other in his players and things like that. I would like to see that finally happen. To me, the results influence your process. And I don't think with this regime, I think it's been so committed to the process, they're afraid to acknowledge the reality of 10th place in the AFC, 7th place in the AFC, 8th place in the AFC, the last 3. When do you see those results and realize, boy, we probably should start doing some things differently?
Kevin, I think what you have here is two guys in Frank Reich and Chris Ballard that are the beneficiaries of their predecessor. And it gave them a longer window of time and patience to get results. And I think
that's
the way that this came now all of a sudden is, wait a minute, the egg timer just went off. That's what I think we're seeing before our very eyes, which I find fascinating.
Dave goes, I don't believe Irsay until I see it. I think the meeting was a front to calm the fan outrage. The last few years, his words don't match up to the actions. I do think that is something a lot of fans, at least I've heard from here. All right, we got some callers to get to. We'll get to Frank Reich's comments on Carson Wentz yesterday, a much different tune and tone than he used, particularly with Phillip Rivers last season. I want to hear your thoughts on Jim Irsay's comments to Mike Chappell as well. Kevin Bowe and Jake Query, 1 hour done here. Kevin and Query, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
We got our asses whooped yesterday on both sides of the ball.
Perhaps the most inexcusable regular season loss since moving to Indianapolis.
You traded the 13th overall pick for DeForest Buckner.
I don't know if he's made a play in the last 8 weeks.
If you're talking about it.
Your offensive line yesterday was easily their worst game of the season.
I totally agree with what you just said.
We're talking about it.
Jack Doyle, the average tight end. Where was he all day yesterday?
Your home for Indy sports. 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Armor Air is more than a heating and cooling company. They cover it all. Their service fee is only $29. ArmorAir.com. Day or night, they do what's right.
Sports Center updates on The Fan are brought to you by Big O Tires. Save $100 instantly on select sets of 4 tires from Hankook, Toyo, Continental, Nitto, General, Pirelli, Goodyear, and Nexen. Big O Tires, the team you trust.
Switch to Spectrum Mobile and get unlimited data for only $29.99 per month each when you get 2 or more lines. You could save hundreds on your mobile bill. Plus, there are no added taxes, hidden fees, and no contracts. Try the Spectrum Mobile Savings Calculator today, and in 3 easy steps, you'll see how much you could save. Visit SpectrumMobile.com/save. Offer valid for new customers on 2 or more unlimited lines. Spectrum Internet required. Restrictions apply. Visit SpectrumMobile.com for details.
I know holiday season is in the rearview mirror, but still we're feeling the effects of spending during that season. Well, luckily, our friends Golden Oak Lending are ready to help you out in the saving money category. Good folks over at Golden Oak are ready to help right now and get you refinanced today. Golden Oak's experienced local loan officers make refinancing and buying a breeze, guiding you through every step to ensure you never get lost in jargon or numbers. Even if you haven't done anything to your house, your home's value has increased in the last year alone, giving you the opportunity to use that equity to finish a home project, pay off credit cards, or even consolidate bills. You can find out how much you can save with Zipline. That is Golden Oak Lending's fast and easy online mortgage tool. The average cash-out customer saves $904 a month. So no matter your unique situation or goals, you have an expert lending partner for life in Golden Oak Lending. Head to goldenoaklending.com right now to see what your home equity can do for you. NMLS 114937, 1.875% fixed, 2.95, 2% APR, FHA 15-year mortgage with 20% equity and approved credit.
As a Shane Company jewelry consultant, I get to work with couples looking for their dream engagement ring. Many feel overwhelmed. They just don't know where to start. And that's what I love about my job. I get to make this important experience fun and easy. We don't work on commission, so there's no pressure. When you visit, first, I'll want to know, what are your ideas for your dream ring? What fits your lifestyle, your personality, your budget? Then we'll go from there. We'll look at ring settings and I'll show you options for the center stone. For example, if you choose a classic solitaire ring setting, I can show you how it'll look with different center stones, like a pear-shaped diamond or an oval pink sapphire. We have all shapes, colors, and sizes. If you're going for a big look with lots of sparkle, I can show you our halo ring settings. Or, if you want a ring that's ready to go, we can look at our perfectly preset styles. Visit your friends. We're in this together.
Now you have a friend in the jewelry business. Shane Company and ShaneCo.com.
The Eagles Hotel California Tour.
Welcome to the Hotel California.
Live in concert with a full orchestra.
Take it.
Performing their iconic album, Hotel California, beginning to end, plus a greatest hit set. The Eagles, Gainbridge Fieldhouse, March 22nd. Get tickets Friday, January 14th at 10 a.m. at Ticketmaster.com.
93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
WIBC HD2, W298BB, WIBC HD3, W228CX, Indianapolis.
Soccer Saturday featuring Indy 11. If this is your football, this is your show. Saturday at 9 on The Fan. It's Kevin and Query.
We'll have some classes at times.
Hey, we're calling the plays, all right? We gotta run the ball. When we pass, watch. We'll run the ball.
Can we run it down there?
Just play.
We run it down.
Yeah, Jeff.
Okay, so
we will. All right, when we call pass plays, block.
On 93.5
Boom, baby.
and 107.5, The Fan.
8 o'clock hour. Good morning to you. Jake Query along with Kevin Bowen. It is Kevin and Query here on 93.5, 107.5. The Fan. Monument Circle illuminated, even though it is a clear sunrise this morning and a good-looking sunrise. Monument Circle illuminated in red and white lights. I would assume that's because congratulations to the Bulldogs of Georgia, who last night claimed college football's national championship at Lucas Oil Stadium. But the focus on conversation this morning is on the team that plays professionally in that stadium, the Indianapolis Colts. The comments from Jim Irsay and the direction of the franchise after their colossal disappointment in Jacksonville on Sunday. And Kevin, we have many who would like to join the conversation about the horseshoe.
Many. I think Sean's been hanging around the longest. I want to talk a little bit about tomorrow's final Hard Knocks episode. Good morning, Sean.
Hey, guys. Just wanted to see if maybe you thought the Hard Knocks spotlight on the Colts for the second half of the season might have put some pressure on them, made them maybe live up to those expectations that were put upon them by that television program.
Thanks, Sean.
It's a good question because I thought, this is the first time that Hard Knocks has been done in season, obviously, right? And, I don't know that we'll ever know, Kevin. I was always a little bit hesitant of this, and that is, did you have players that bought a little too much into their own hype from it? Did it create an additional pressure? I don't know about the additional pressure, but I think that when you are dealing with human beings all within the same company, you always have egos in play, and at times those can clash as opposed to mesh, and something that allows for a further illumination of personality or brand creates the possible additional sprinkle of those personalities clashing as opposed to meshing. Is that me way overthinking Hard Knocks?
No, I don't think it is. If a few extra cameras are going to cause your team to derail, though, it probably says more about what you've got inside that locker room, or at least what you maybe thought you had versus what you actually have. This team is not used to playing with attention, bullseye on their back. They continue to get off the poor starts, so finally when they turn it around, maybe that has something to do with it as well. I also think, Jake, we probably should acknowledge the elephant in the room. And the most important week of the season, the win and get in, arguably, and Jonathan Taylor would probably supplant Carson Wentz in this, but two of your best players, or your most important players, I should say, and Carson Wentz and Darius Leonard missed an entire week of practice, and clearly that was your worst practice of the week. We saw it on Hard Knocks. Is that something that we should probably put a little bit more stock into? Of when this season started to derail, it begun with, by all accounts, from Frank Reich to players. We saw Darius Leonard, kind of calling some guys out for how poor their practice was leading into the Raiders game. And then at that point, did that start? the turbulence that landed in Jacksonville.
Okay, if we're going to bring an elephant in the room, let me introduce one, Kevin, okay? And I went back and forth to myself yesterday as to whether or not I was going to go here with this. Because people will interpret it in the wrong way as a political narrative. It is, I promise you, not intended to be. Okay? But, like my cousin just asked me, do you think it's possible that Wentz injured his throwing arm in the Arizona game? Because he was clearly, the last 2 weeks in the Raider game and the Jacksonville game, Carson Wentz just looked off, right? Kevin, have you had the flu before in your lifetime?
Sure.
When you have the flu, even if you're not knocked out by it, or you've got a cold. You ever had a cold and just you touch the table and your hand just it's everything feels freezing kind of, or you're just kind of achy and feel off, right? Granted, I am a 49-year-old guy with a ballpoint pen spring in my heart, right? So, like, I'm not necessarily saying that I'm Adonis here, and I'm certainly not in the physical condition of an NFL player. It would be ludicrous for me to pretend that I'm even at 10% the physical shape that these guys are in. And people can, and I know that we are entering into, and I don't want to do that, the category of narrative and political diatribe about the validity of vaccines. That's a whole talk show that I'm not even qualified to get into, but I will simply say this, and that is, I had COVID right after Christmas, and I mean, for 3 days I was congested. I did not have body aches. I did not have a temperature. I didn't have any of those symptoms. But I also had 3 rounds of vaccination in me. I have no idea if that played a factor in me being fortunate of not feeling terribly under the weather. But Carson Wentz, what we do know is that he tested positive for a virus that many people, while they are under the influence of it, feel achy or feel off. And we know that he did not have the vaccination ahead of time, if you want to believe in the validity of that, to just help his body prepare and holding it off. Is it possible that what we saw was an under-the-weather Carson Wentz? No one's talked about that. We know, was he 100% asymptomatic? Highly possibly he was, because he's an unbelievably physically gifted athlete in his 20s. How old is he? I don't even know. What is he, 28? I'm guessing.
I think something around there, yeah.
So, but is it possible, and I'm not saying it as an indictment on his decision to not vaccinate. I 100% understand why some people don't want to get the vaccination. I totally get that. I think people should have their free choice to do that. I get it. I don't want to get into that. But what I'm getting at is it possible that what we simply saw was a guy that wasn't feeling very well?
Sure. It also doesn't change my opinion of the quarterback I saw this season.
Fair.
Because I think when they were even...
Because there was body of work and evidence that that would not have been the contributing factor to him not playing well.
I just think Jonathan Taylor's presence and Darius Leonard forcing turnovers masked a lot of the Carson issues, especially in critical moments. The Arizona game would be the one outlier in that, but too often, the New England game, look at the play calling down the stretch. It was to do anything but put the ball in Carson Wentz's hands. The Tennessee game, finishing off that game in Baltimore as well. You just didn't make enough plays. I think, Jake, when you go back to some of those Irsay comments, and he mentions that changes need to be made, do you think Irsay sits here at all and says the prime years for a running back are ticking, and that ramps up my sense of urgency in wanting to do something? You could look at it 2 ways. One could say, well, that means you stick with Carson and you try to just put a Band-Aid on the situation and try to make a quick fix. Or the other way, say, screw this patience. We need to do something drastic, because Jonathan Taylor and how a running back's career path usually goes, it's not deep into your 20s that you're at the level that Jonathan Taylor's currently at.
Well, I think we talked about this yesterday. If you look at league rushing leaders, Derrick Henry would be the outlier here. For the most part, it's very rare that the guy who is leading the league in rushing for a season even makes a postseason run, or gets into the postseason, because that's not the way the NFL is in 2021, 2022. It's a different league now. So, yes, you can win, and you need to take advantage. I mean, Jonathan Taylor's a special talent. There is no doubt about the fact that he gives them the ability to stay in games or get back into games even when maybe they don't necessarily belong in a game. But you've got to have a quarterback. And again, I know that I'm being a total hypocrite here. I was bullish on Carson Wentz all season long until the last 3 weeks when it mattered the most. When it mattered the most, that dude was literally in absentia. It's like, what happened to him? Where'd he go? And that was that was the warning, Kevin. In Philadelphia, if you talked to, like my buddy Doug Weiler, born and raised in Philly, good buddy of mine, 30-year friend of mine, diehard Eagles fan. Carson Wentz comes here. I'm like, Doug, tell me what I'm getting in Carson Wentz. Jake, this guy, when it matters most, is going to disappoint you. He's going to let you down. Bottom line, he's going to let you down. And I watched him, and I'm like, man, he's big, and he's athletic, and he can roll. And when he was healthy, at the beginning of the year, he had 2 bad ankles, and I'm giving him benefit of the doubt. And then he justified my belief in him for a few weeks until it mattered most. And where was he? So the question or the challenge for the Colts, Kevin, is this. And this is what I was saying when we were debating whether or not he was the guy. I was saying he's the guy kind of by default, because where else do you turn?
And it's a very fair debate. Very fair.
And if people think that Russell Wilson's the answer, or if people think that Aaron Rodgers is the answer,
you don't have the resources.
And you're not the only one. Like, I remember. Do you remember when LeBron James was coming up at the end of his rookie contract with the Cavaliers? And 2 years prior to that, every NBA team in the league was shedding payroll because they felt like they were the only ones smart enough that they were opening up themselves enough cap space to get LeBron James. And it was like, actually what they're doing is they think they might have a chance at LeBron James in the summer, and so they're going to go out and they're going to. But every team was doing it. So, do the Colts, I'm not saying the brass, fans of the Colts, do they think they're the only one that thinks Russell Wilson might be an answer for them? You think there aren't 10 other teams that are thinking the same thing?
I don't think the Colts think that. I think fans
That's
fall
what I mean.
into that trap
Right.
at times with that. Speaking of Carson, let's get to Mike. Mike wanted to talk about Carson Wentz. Good morning, Mike.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for calling.
Thanks for taking my call. I don't know if you saw the interview with Andrew Luck before the game, but he was asked, what advice would you give to these quarterbacks coming into the game? And he said, protect the football. And I don't know how this wasn't addressed on Hard Knocks or anytime Carson went to the sidelines, but the man was 0 for 30 with shovel passes. Okay. It was at least a turnover to the other team. He would hit Quinn Nelson in the back. And I just saw no accountability. And even watching Hard Knocks, I think it was our offensive line coach who said, if you guys like me and want to see me next year, you'll keep your hands inside and you won't hold. How about if you want your job and you want to play for the Colts, you're not going to hold. Just no accountability. And that's why we're at where we're at today. Thanks.
The interesting thing about Mike, I appreciate the call. For the most part, and he's right about the shovel passes. I mean, there were how many times were there what are we doing here? But for the most part, Kevin,
he got away with a lot of them.
And for the most part, turnovers were not an issue.
Agreed. Unlike last year.
If you were going to give him, I mean, with Carson Wentz, the one thing you got to give him credit for is they did not turn the ball over a lot.
It was just some wildly inaccurate play, especially late in the season when you needed to play off your running back to some level. I'll go back to what I said yesterday. When you give a first and third round pick, when you're paying this guy nearly $30 million moving forward, that guy should cover up other areas of your roster that are not at a peak level. Whereas the Colts had to cover up him too often this past season. Quarterback means too much. Means way too much. So you explore everything. You explore a Wilson. You explore Rodgers. You explore trading into the back of the first round come April. Whatever. They're not easy and obvious answers, but the quarterback that we saw this past season is nowhere what you need to be a legit 5 to 7 year perennial contender in the AFC.
Here's the thing. Let me get to one other area here, Kevin, before we get to the update. I think Chris Ballard is good at what he does. I think he's good at what he does. I think Chris Ballard has been labeled in this town as outstanding, a prodigy, the next, Popovich or Belichick or insert name of baseball, whatever, general manager, Walt Jocketty, Billy Bean, whatever. What evidence do we have of that? At what point this is what year for Chris Ballard, Kevin?
He just completed his 5th year.
And in 5 years, how many postseason wins?
Uno.
Now, I get it. You judge somebody based on like where they started and where they are now. I get it. But I think that Ballard, if you look at his predecessor, Ryan Grigson was a general manager, and we could go down a long rabbit hole here. But I personally believe that Ryan Grigson was a general manager that was brought in. Everything goes based on your predecessor. Grigson came in off of the Polian era, and I think that Jim Irsay, it was very important for Jim Irsay to take his franchise back because Bill Polian became as known in this town as the man in charge of the Colts, as Jim Irsay's name was. People forget, Jim Irsay, 10 years ago, when you're like, Indianapolis Colts, a lot of people were like, oh yeah, Bill Polian. Now, and I think Jim Irsay's like, look, this is my team still. And I think Polian became a little more demanded, like his thumbprints were more on it than I think Irsay felt comfortable. So when Irsay made that change, I think it was by design to bring a general manager in that you were giving your first opportunity to and quote-unquote discovering, but also that allowed Jim Irsay to have more say and make it very clear that, in fact, it was his franchise. And Ryan Grigson...
To the point of meddling?
Well, yes, honestly. Meddling's the wrong word, but having influence for certain, as opposed to completely hands-off, as I think he was with Bill Polian. So Grigson comes in, has an opportunity, and I totally understand why you take advantage of that opportunity if you're Ryan Grigson, but Grigson will be the first to tell you, at that time, laser focused on what he's got to do and not paying attention to the auxiliaries that come into it. Being savvy with the media, being good in front of the podium, wearing the right clothing that makes you look suave and smooth. Those are things that were not strong suits for Grigson. So Ballard comes in and is like, hey, this is easy. I come in and put on a nice form-fitting sweater, get a little 5 o'clock shadow, flash my blue eyes or whatever color his eyes are in a southern drawl, and based on my predecessor, I look like I'm the guy in control. And it's been 5 years now, and at what point does the guy in control look like he has complete thumbprint on something going in the right direction as opposed to stuck in neutral? And I think Ballard's been given way too much credit as a prodigy. If he's a prodigy, I got to see results, quite frankly. And maybe that's overthinking it, but I think if you're Jim Irsay, that's where you start to look first.
They're excellent. Excellent is the word that Jim Irsay used yesterday with Mike Chappell. Again, I cannot disagree more with that. Let's get to one more call here. Phil, want to talk about the offensive issues right now for the Colts. What's up, Phil?
Hey, not much, hanging in there. Thanks for taking the call, Kevin and Jake. Just to follow you guys up real quick, if Ballard was smart, he would heed the advice and the experience of what happened to Grigson and fire Frank ASAP. But, since we're talking about Chris Ballard here, the offense, Quentin Nelson, he's got the contract extension coming up, right? Supposedly a big cog in the wheel of what we're doing here. But, man, I really thought Filthy Six had a terrible game. against the Jaguars. I mean, was that just me just missing some plays, or did he really just miss some plays, or was that because his bookends and Ryan Kelly were terrible, which has been the case for a lot of games, and then also the dude from Kansas City who's just been non-existent on pass blocking. That guy was absent all season. And I don't know, man. I mean, here's a legitimate question too, not just with the offense, but this whole team. For years, the Colts have always been injured. I don't know if that's been more so than other teams in the league, but it seems like it is. We're always dealing with injuries. I know when Zupancic was around, the strength and conditioning coach, we didn't really have those issues as much as we do now. So maybe we need to look at a new strength and conditioning coach too. I don't know what you guys think, but thanks for taking the call.
Phil, a lot of good points there. I actually think the Colts are one of the healthier teams in the back half of the year. Obviously, a ton of injuries early on. To the offensive line point, I think it was just take a ticket from Sunday. I mean, Braden Smith, just a massive mistake in communication there that allowed the strip sack. It comes back to when you've majorly invested into the trenches, O-line and D-line, and this is where it's got you. It's got you to a very average defined ceiling. To me, that has to be a wake-up call when I hear Jim Irsay saying that he's demanding change and things like that. When does Ballard's approach to free agency and approach in general to roster building get adjusted? I think that is a big part of while the Wentz and the Eberflus debate are the sexier debates, I think Ballard has got to fall into that category as well with how he has built this roster in a very archaic way of building an NFL team versus the modern day league that is so predicated on skill in the passing game.
Archaic. I like that.
Archaic. Jake, a fullback away, a Tom Lipinski fullback away from being a legit 3-time Super Bowl winner in the 80s.
You were at last night's college football national championship game, right?
Correct.
Were you there so late that you didn't get enough sleep, and so therefore you're grumpy this morning, and therefore using terms like archaic?
I don't think that.
Are you sleep deprived? I was sleep deprived yesterday.
I actually feel somewhat
irritable. Are you irritable?
No, I think I feel somewhat good.
Speaking of the college football national championship game last night, let's get to that here in a Big O Tire Sports Center update.
The Sports Center update on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan is presented by Big O Tires, the team you trust.
Kevin Bowen, this trivia question for you. If you are a Georgia fan and you say, let's go Dogs, and you're going to put it on a banner out in front of your house, how do you spell dogs?
D-A-W-G.
That is correct. That is correct. I thought it was D-O-G-S for a while there, and I'm like, wait a minute. I think it's dogs.
Butler Blue was hanging with, is it UGA 10?
I saw that.
I think they're up to 10.
UGA looked like he needed a nap last night.
Yeah, the 8 o'clock tip for UGA, or 8 o'clock kick, I should say. It was a little bit late for him.
Congratulations to Georgia. They are your college football national champions, winning their first title in 41 years. Herschel Walker was their running back the last time that they did it. Kirby Smart said after the game that there was going to be some property torn up in Indianapolis. People got all bent out of shape. Capitol Avenue decided they were going to tear it up today and not tell Kevin and I on our way in, for example. So if you're driving down south, be aware of that, near Methodist Hospital. But that actually was just paying homage to a famous radio call in Georgia history when they defeated Florida in Jacksonville back in the early 80s, and the radio announcer said they were going to tear up some property as a result.
Felt like a Georgia home game inside of Lucas Oil Stadium. I felt like about 80-20 Georgia fans in there, 9-6 at halftime. Big block field goal, the first block field goal Alabama's had go against them in nearly 10 years. Thought that kind of changed some of the tone of this game. And in the fourth quarter, Stetson Bennett did make some big-time plays, finally, after looking a bit shaky early on, and a pick-six seal that Alabama loses 33-18.
Speaking of inside Lucas Oil Stadium, Andrew Luck was there, right?
He was a slim Andrew Luck, to say the least. They are going into the College Football Hall of Fame. We'll play a clip of that here in a little bit. LeVar Arrington, Champ Bailey, Michael Crabtree. How about Mike Doss, former Colt? Jake,
I saw Mike
going into the College Football Hall of Fame.
Nothing against Mike Doss, because I know that you judge it as a college player. I don't remember him necessarily being like when I think of a College Football Hall of Fame, I think it's made up of players that were transcendently, everyone knew how good they were, stars during their college career.
Right.
And Mike Doss does not come to mind.
Yeah, someone needs to refresh me on the criteria for the College Football Hall of Fame. Peyton Manning also in the building last night. Looked like he was in an Irsay type suite, but unsure of that there. Pacers last night, Jake, I did not watch. I was told it was ugly.
It was
ugly basketball.
It was frustrating. I will say that. Pacers in overtime, Boston defeating them 101-98. Those two, by the way, back at the field house here in Indy, Indy being the city that we're currently in, by the way. On Wednesday, Lance Stevenson had 14, missed a couple of threes. Not bad shots. He just couldn't get them to go down late in the game and in overtime. Domas Sabonis, triple-double, 11 points, 23 boards, and 10 assists. But the combo for the Celtics of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum combining for 50 points between the two of them, simply too much for the Pacers in overtime last night.
One step closer to the trade deadline. Here we go. Less than a month away. Miles Turner with pretty cryptic social media post. His management team had some as well.
He has a management team?
Yeah, I don't know, agency, whatever you want to call it. Totally done with Turner and his constant chirping, wanting a bigger role and not being able to handle that bigger role. It is stunning, Jake, last night with another loss of less than 4 points, 1-12 in games decided by 4 points or less.
I mean, they just don't have a closeout guy and they don't have a wing defender. It's that simple, right?
Boston back home on Wednesday. That's tomorrow night. Our coverage begins at 6:30. Phoenix at home, 6:30 Friday, and then the last Western trip of the year. A difficult one. Clippers, Lakers, Warriors, Suns, and I guess the Pelicans if they qualify.
When Phoenix comes here, I wonder if they're still going to have my favorite player in the league, Bismack Biyombo. He was on like a 10-day, right?
10-dayer.
I might go just to yell for Bismack Biyombo.
Now, isn't Lance's 10-day coming to an end?
He's going to be signed for the rest of the year, right?
Yeah. I mean, come on now. Yeah.
I mean, he's become like an integral part of their team. And I will say the Lance Stevenson, Domas Sabonis chemistry is pretty strong in terms of their pick and rolls. So you got to go with what's working for you, right?
Yeah, no, I would agree there. College basketball, we were supposed to get Purdue in action tonight, but that game at Michigan canceled due to COVID. Purdue has fallen to 7th in the polls. It's a Michigan COVID issue within their program. So Purdue has Nebraska on Friday. Indiana, they are 6th receiving votes right now. So 31st, I guess, if you look at a top 25 and extend it a little bit more. At Iowa on Thursday for the Hoosiers. That is a 9 o'clock tip. And then Butler's at Georgetown, at Nova, at UConn, Jake, all in the next week.
Butler, the UConn game, that's a makeup, right?
Correct. That is a makeup game. We'll have to see about that Purdue-Michigan game getting made up as well. But I think some of these conferences are trying to squeeze games in, which, unfortunately means a very, very tight schedule there. Quickly, just a rundown of the wild card schedule for this weekend. If you haven't seen it, Raiders, Bengals, Patriots, Bills. Those two games on Saturday. Sunday, you've got Eagles at the Bucks, 49ers at the Cowboys, and the nightcap, the Steelers at the Chiefs. And the Monday night game, that is a Manning cast game, the final one of the year on ESPN, Cardinals at Rams in that NFC
Which one's
West
going to be the upset?
Tilt.
There's always an upset in the wild card round. Which one's it going to be?
I will go with 49ers over Cowboys.
Okay. Pittsburgh's going to shock the world.
Oh, boy.
I mean,
Mark Thankton sounds...
Put your money where your mouth is if you're going to say that
How
one.
much did Pittsburgh lose to Kansas City by a few weeks ago?
Pittsburgh's going to shock the world, baby.
Kansas City's favored by 13 points. I'm not sure if Big Ben can throw the ball from me to Mark.
Well, that's probably true. They're going to shock the world. It's going to be like when the Colts went in there in 95 and Lynn Elliott missed like 17 field goals. What's the weather supposed to be in Kansas City? Do we know?
Yeah, I know it's supposed to be dicey in Buffalo, New England. That's the Saturday night game. So will that play into New England's favor again like it did in the earlier matchup? All right, we come back here on Kevin Aquario. We'll get more into the Jim Irsay comments to Mike Chappell yesterday about demanding change while at the same time saying that Chris Ballard and Frank Reich have done an excellent job now 5 and 4 years respectively into their 10 years. We'll play some of that Andrew Luck audio from last night as well. Kevin Bowe and Jake Query, 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
Sports Center updates on The Fan are brought to you by Big O Tires. Save $100 instantly on select sets of 4 tires from Hankook, Toyo, Continental, Nitto, General, Pirelli, Goodyear, and Nexen. Big O Tires, the team you trust.
Bet Rivers Sportsbook wants you to experience Rush Pay. When you want to cash out your winnings, you don't want to wait 2 days just to get the go-ahead to withdraw your money. That's why Bet Rivers created Rush Pay. With Rush Pay, 80% of withdrawal requests are approved instantly, meaning you'll get your money faster. Why wait? Get your cash when you want it. Bet with a winner. Bet with Bet Rivers Sportsbook at betrivers.com. Must be 21 and located in Indiana. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-9-WITH-IT. 1-800-994-8448.
A few weeks back, I was lucky enough to chat with the owners of Golden Oak Lending. This is no BS, but what great people simply looking to help all of us save money. Our friends at Golden Oak are looking to help right now and get you refinanced today. Among the many things I love about Golden Oak is no cost for an appraisal. That's right. Simply by just picking up the phone, seeing if they can meet your goals, costs absolutely nothing. And who you talk to is not going to be some call center across the country. It's going to be a local loan officer right here in Indy. Golden Oak's experienced local loan officers make refinancing and buying a breeze, guiding you through every step to ensure you never get lost in jargon and numbers. You'll never pay for an appraisal up front, and if they can't close a loan for any reason, the appraisal is no charge. So no matter your unique situation or goals, you have an expert lending partner for life in Golden Oak Lending. Head to goldenoaklending.com right now. See what your home equity can do for you. NMLS 114937, 1.875% fixed, 2.952% APR, FHA 15-year mortgage with 20% equity and approved credit.
Join Mark Patrick seminars and stop smoking now without cravings, irritability, weight gain, or your money back. Only $49.99 guaranteed. Also, let Mark Patrick Hypnosis destroy unwanted food cravings and lose the weight. Seminars Thursday, January 20th at the Holiday Inn in Carmel. Weight loss seminar 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. Stop smoking seminar 8 to 10 p.m. And Saturday, January 22nd at the La Quinta Inn and Suites Hotel in Indianapolis. Weight loss seminar 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Stop smoking seminar 2 to 4 p.m. Registration 30 minutes before seminar.
This was a deep pantsing of this Colts team.
You just saw the worst loss in the history of the Colts franchise.
That was an embarrassing performance, the worst loss all time here.
If you're talking about it,
Irsay need to grow up here and start clearing house.
We're talking about it.
But you knew what was on the line.
It's hard to make good quarterback when they just have zero weapons.
Well, you can't fire rank. It's crazy. My ass, you can't.
Your home for Indy Sports, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Kevin, you mentioned it earlier. It's been a topic of conversation for us so far this morning. We are halfway home here on Kevin and Query, and that is the comments from Jim Irsay to our friend Mike Chappell just about the direction of the franchise itself and kind of breaking those down. Listen, the one thing about Irsay two things about him that I think you have to really like if you're a Colts fan. Number one, he is an owner that obviously cares, and number two, he's an owner that I think holds himself back from getting too involved. There's such a fine line and balance between an owner like of a Jerry Jones level that's overly involved, and then an owner that, you know, is one that people are like, man, you know, where is Stan Kroenke? Like, you know, what's going on with the franchise? You know, that kind of thing. Irsay's kind of the happy balance of the two. So when he does speak about things that are not pleasing him, I think it gets some attention for the understandable reasons. But do you see his comments as a foreshadow of stepping in and making changes? Or is it his way of saying, look, guys, I'm not happy. I'm leaving it up to you to figure out how to make it better?
You know, I think it's a very understandable question to ask. Listening to Frank Reich's tone yesterday when asked about Carson Wentz, Jake, I thought was extremely interesting. We know Frank Reich in his press conference settings, he does not shy away from finding praise for players, particularly his quarterbacks, particularly a son like in Carson Wentz. He did not go out of his way to heap praise towards Carson Wentz yesterday. And again, that comes after this meeting with Irsay. So the Irsay Reich-Ballard meeting happens, Sunday night, whatever, 7, 8 o'clock, whenever the team and Irsay get back to Indianapolis. They go to West 56, and those three have a powwow for a couple hours. And that's rare. It's not how Irsay usually operates. We've gotten into some of those comments earlier. We can get back into them. But then yesterday, Jake, Frank has his season-ending presser and is asked very directly, is Carson Wentz going to be the guy in 2022? And this time last year, he's talking about how Phillip Rivers can take the Colts to another level. He's the starting quarterback next year. As I sit here right now, he's not shying away from going down that path at all. Yesterday, super non-committal to answering that question. Any sort of individual evaluation on Wentz, didn't want to go down that path, good or bad, besides saying in general the passing offense was a disappointment and that it needs to get better. The comments to me, Jake, were much more Jacoby Brissett-like than Phillip Rivers-like. Maybe I'm reading too much into words, but that's all we have to go by 48 hours after the season has ended. But I walk away from that Zoom and sit here and think the chances of them trying to move on from Wentz, where I was at 5 o'clock on Sunday after the game ended and where I am at 8:35 on Tuesday morning, I think it's a much more realistic possibility. Even though the answers are difficult to find, it's a much more realistic possibility now than I would have thought, 36 hours ago.
Here's a really good point from Casey that I like. I think makes a really good point here. I personally think it was a mistake to sign Rivers as the stopgap. The minute they knew Jacoby was not the guy, they should have looked for a long-term answer. In the draft, they had the capital to trade up for a Herbert or a Tua, or they could have drafted Love or Hurts outright.
Yeah. I mean, hindsight is super 2020, Jake. You obviously traded that 13th overall pick for DeForest Buckner. That was the opportunity. And it was sudden. It was the Luck retirement was still a bit raw, but you sat there 13 overall and could have gotten to what Herbert went 5 and Tua went 6, maybe vice versa.
Did the Chargers move up to get Herbert, or were they?
I thought they were there. I thought them and Miami were both already situated there. To me, Jake, I'm a big believer in this. When you don't have the answer at quarterback, the only way I'm going Band-Aid route is if that quarterback can make a deep playoff run. A Band-Aid at this point would be, whatever, Aaron Rodgers for a couple years. I think Stafford's got a lot more in him than just a couple years, but you know what I'm getting at. And I felt like Brissett to Rivers, while it was an unquestioned upgrade, obviously, there still was a defined ceiling with Rivers leading this football team. And that just means you draft later and you continue to push the quarterback question down the road.
Kicking
the can.
Let me tell you what, I'm going to repeat myself from an hour ago, okay? Last night, Andrew Luck was in the building for the College Football National Championship. First time that many people, myself included, have seen Andrew Luck in some time. I thought Andrew Luck looked like a happy guy, looked like a guy that's living a vegan lifestyle, riding his bike around looking at architecture buildings, which is cool. I've got zero problem with Andrew Luck deciding to walk away from the game of football. That's his right and his prerogative. The timing of it, I know that people were unhappy about. And I hear a lot of people still that have pitchforks for Andrew Luck because he walked out on his team. Fine. It's beyond time to use that as an excuse as to where the Colts are. In 2019, Andrew Luck walked away from the Indianapolis Colts, and the Colts were left scrambling for what they were going to do at the quarterback position. That was now 3 quarterbacks ago. Since then, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers went out and got Tom Brady and won a Super Bowl with him. Since then, the New England Patriots drafted Mac Jones and have put themselves in a very good position in the playoffs. Since then, the Los Angeles Rams traded for Matthew Stafford and have him in the playoffs. Say what you want about, the Rams have good pieces around him, don't get me wrong, but they weren't happy with Jared Goff, so they just made a move and went out and got the guy they thought was their guy. Since then, the Arizona Cardinals drafted Kyler Murray, granted number 1 overall, and have put themselves in the playoffs. Since then, 50%. 6 of the 12 teams in the postseason right now have gotten quarterbacks since then that were not on their roster when Andrew Luck walked from the Indianapolis Colts. The point being, if you need to get it done, it can get done. Yes, it sucked the timing on when Andrew Luck decided to retire, which was his free will to do, but we have long since passed the expiration date on when that can be used as an excuse for why the Colts are stuck in neutral.
No, I would agree. I think it's kind of a cop-out.
Totally.
I mean, look at the final 4 teams last year, Jake, in the AFC. Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, all those guys, I think maybe Mahomes wasn't all playing on rookie contracts at the time. You fast forward it to this year, and now you're going to throw Mac Jones into it. Now you're going to throw Joe Burrow into it as well. So you look at the AFC and where the Colts rank in terms of how they feel about their quarterback position, they're in the bottom half of teams. And that's worrisome. That, I think, is something that you have to acknowledge. Now, I go back to what I said earlier, Jake, about Frank Reich's comments sounding more Brissett-like than Rivers-like when talking about Carson Wentz yesterday. I also can sit here and acknowledge going from Brissett to Rivers, dots that can be connected. Going from Rivers to Wentz, dots that can be connected. Going from Wentz to
whoever it might be.
I got no answer. Right now, January 11th, and again, I know that's difficult, and we got to come up with some answers, but that is the difficult part of this, is without a first-round pick, with a free agency class, that if you want to be scared today early in the morning, go look up the free agent quarterbacks here in 2022 in the NFL. It's not a pretty list. That's where it's a bit of a shrug of the shoulders and say, oh my gosh, man, I don't know where you go. And do the Colts sit there and say, all right, I don't know where we go, so that means let's go to plan B, and that's try to put as much support around Carson as possible at receiver and tight end, and he's got 1 year to prove it, and then financially, Carson can come off the books after the 2022
Kevin,
season.
I was in the 5th grade when I got called down to the principal's office. Not unusual. And I go down to the principal's office, and Grace Wright, the principal, says, I just want to let you know, because your mom called and wanted me to tell you, the Baltimore Colts are moving to Indianapolis. And I'm like, are you serious? Yes, they just said it on the radio. WIBC, as a matter of fact. And I was a diehard NFL fan. I did Play the Pros every Tuesday in the Indianapolis News, trying to win my $200 picking games. I was a huge Steelers fan. And so now all of a sudden the NFL's in Indianapolis, and it's not a great product. They were not a great team. And from 1984 to 1994, it was a constant shuffle at the quarterback position. Art Schlichter, Mike Pagel, Gary Hogeboom, Don Mikowski, Paul Justin, Kelly Holcomb, Chris Chandler, Jeff George. Constant revolve of quarterbacks. Jim Harbaugh finally. And then Peyton Manning. And all of a sudden, for 11 years, you've got the most elite quarterback play one could imagine. And guess what? They were able to make a transition, which in hindsight probably was the wrong call, from Peyton Manning into Andrew Luck. Again, quarterback prodigy, great talent, generational talent. All the while, from 1998 to 2019, other franchises, name one, they're going through their own version of Gary Hogeboom and Art Schlichter and Mike Pagel. I think fans in this town of this franchise are now realizing, Kevin, the reality of the NFL, which is for 95% of franchises, it is a constant search and chase of the high of elite quarterback play, which is the hardest thing to find in professional sports, period. And that's where they are. And it doesn't have an immediate answer, nor does it have an answer that is going to get you another 21 years. The odds are stacked against you of that happening. And in reality, that you and I, so long as we're doing this show, quite possibly every 2 years could be talking about a different guy under center.
Yeah, quarterback purgatory, a.k.a. quarterback hell. I also think this, Jake, and it's been brought more to light, I think, in the last 48 hours. Fans, I think, are frustrated in witnessing how this roster has been built, believing that it has a very defined ceiling in how the NFL game is played. It's favored to the passing game, both sides of the ball. And I'm talking about, we haven't talked about it enough, but pass rush remains, as I throw my pen, pass rush remains a huge, huge issue for this franchise and how much they've invested, and either they've not drafted the right guys or the lack of development with those guys as well. And I think how Chris Ballard has gone about building this roster is something that should be debated as well, considering the results now 5 years into it. Joel Erickson from the Star is going to join us in 15 minutes to talk more about Jim Irsay's comments and Frank Reich yesterday. We'll play some of that Andrew Luck audio from last night as well. Kevin and Query, 93.5 on 107.5, The Fan.
Hey, are you a single professional man looking for a life mate? If your do-it-yourself approach for finding her isn't getting you the results you want, why not hire a pro, like me, so you can take your game to a new level? I'm Amy Owens, singles coach and matchmaker. Maybe you've been looking for a while, or maybe you're newly divorced or widowed and haven't had a date in years, even decades. I can offer you tips, strategies, and introductions to some of Indy's finest single women. These ladies are active, attractive, fit, smart, accomplished, and financially self-sufficient. The only thing missing from their lives is the love and companionship of a good man. If that's you, please give me a call at 317-727-6331. That's 727-6331. Or check out my website, blueribbonsingles.com. Why Blue Ribbon Singles? Because it's the winners who get the blue ribbon.
Are you missing football on Thursdays? We can turn every Thursday into payday with NBA on TNT on FanDuel Sportsbook. Hey, it's Mark from Kevin and Query. It doesn't matter if you win or lose. FanDuel is giving all customers $10 back every Thursday. Just bet a $10 or more same-game parlay on any NBA on TNT game. Same-game parlays let you combine the money line, point spread, player props, and more all into one wager. I love the player props when I play same-game parlays on FanDuel Sportsbook. So, for example, you could get Domantas Sabonis over a certain number of points, Miles Turner over or under in rebounds, Chris Duarte over under in assists, and a whole lot more. It's the perfect way to turn a small bet into a big-time score. And win or lose, you're guaranteed to get $10 added to your account. Offers like this are one of the many reasons I love betting the NBA on FanDuel Sportsbook. Plus, the app is safe, secure, and easy to use. They have everyday odds, boosts, and specials. And when you win, you get paid in as little as 2 hours. So get $10 back every Thursday, win or lose with TNT Thursdays. Plus, if you're new to FanDuel Sportsbook, just sign up today with promo code MARK and get your first bet risk-free up to $1,000. Make every moment more this NBA season. Again, that's promo code MARK, M-A-R-C. 21 and over and present in Indiana. Bonus issued is now withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Max bonus $10. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-9-WITH-IT.
My crusade for the perfect pizza crust has led me here, pining over a backyard wood-fired oven. But how do I bake this build into my budget? Where can I get some solid guidance on my finances? Who can help me understand if I have the dough for this?
A little financial advice. At Regions, we know that's important because your Life Green checking account comes with Greenprint, financial planning with a banker who will help you create a personal budget and live in the moment. Make your appointment at regions.com/Greenprint. Regions Bank, member FDIC.
Are you suffering from chronic joint pain like Heather?
I have terrible arthritis and have had it for quite a while, and I've gone to all kinds of doctors trying to figure out what to do, and everybody just said surgery, and surgery was months of rehab, and I didn't want to do that.
But then Heather discovered QC Kinetics, local medical professionals who specialize in natural biologic treatments, non-invasive solutions designed to repair and restore damaged tissue in your joints. And she absolutely loves the results.
I like to tell anybody who's suffering that there are options that are not steroids, that are not surgery. You owe it to yourself to find out about QC Kinetics and find out what they can do for you.
No surgery, no drugs, no downtime. Discover QC Kinetics and learn more about natural biologic treatments with lasting results.
Call QC Kinetics, 463-235-7160. That's 463-235-7160. Don't wait. Call today. QC Kinetics, 463-235-7160.
Join me today. We're going to recap the national championship game. See if any of you took my bets. We're going to talk to Mike Chappell, get mad about the Colts, talk to Benetti because they had something to do. Join me today.
chill. It's Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I am donning this morning a Georgia t-shirt. I'm not some huge Georgia fan, but I thought the fans were cool.
I was going to say, you can't be a Clemson fan
I
and
know.
call yourself
Well, they started
Georgia
the year
fan.
against each other, right? But I respect Georgia. I think I've always liked, I think they have cool helmets, first off. But, Lars Tate played there when I was a kid, so I always kind of liked him. But cool last night to see Georgia win their first national title in 41 years. But the big story in the pregame was that of who all of a sudden was rolled out on ESPN in terms of doing a little pregame analysis. And, Kevin, you sent out a picture, and I immediately thought to myself, that looks like a 7th grade science teacher. And then I honestly thought for a split second it was a joke. I'm like, wait a minute, that really is Andrew Luck. He has obviously lost a ton of weight. A lot of people were like, whoa, is he sickly? And I'm like, no, he actually looks healthy. The amount of mass that you have to have on your body to play professional football probably goes into an unhealthy area, truth be told. He looked to me like a guy that is enjoying probably like a vegan diet and riding his bike all over probably Europe and looking at old buildings. And still, mind you, and I think a lot of people don't realize this, Kevin, Andrew Luck still lives in Indianapolis. Luck is interesting because he's a guy really with no hometown. Because his father, Oliver Luck, was, he lived in Europe for a little bit. He went to high school in Houston. He went to college in California. I mean, it's not like he grew up someplace from kindergarten through his senior year of high school. He moved like every couple of years. So he's made Indianapolis home. I do know that he and his wife are extremely philanthropically involved with a couple of different organizations upon their request of that not being overly publicized, which I've got a ton of respect for, so I won't say which organizations, but they are very financially and time involved, which is wonderful. But at the game last night, that created some ripple, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm at the Bullseye Event Center tailgate with 9 million Georgia fans barking 2 hours before kickoff, and all of a sudden I look up at one of the giant TVs, and I'm like, that mustache looks immaculate. And that is Andrew bleeping Luck. I mean, my jaw dropped. I was like, oh my gosh. I should have put 2 and 2 together that, in the national title game, they announced the College Football Hall of Fame class, and he was announced in that class earlier in the day.
Was RG3 in there with him?
Right, but RG3 is not in the class, right? He was there for ESPN.
But I'm saying, was RG3 also announced?
Not as a Hall of Fame member.
Okay.
He was working for ESPN doing, pregame show and things like that. Luck and his wife, I know his wife, I believe, was over doing stuff with gymnastics for the Olympics, and pretty sure they still live close to the Colts facility, if I'm not mistaken. You asked me during the break, you think Andrew Luck has ever listened to this show? And I laughed and said, no chance.
Yeah, because he's listening to either BBC News or NPR, right?
Yeah. Or, Frank Lloyd Wright podcast, or I don't know, insert your architecture person here. And then Peyton Manning in the building. I mean, it literally was like, let's get all the salt that we've put on the streets this weekend and just pour it into wounds for Colts fans. Like, way too soon seeing Andrew Luck next to RG3. Here was, I think Mark's got a little bit of the audio. Mark, will you play both the clips of Luck? First one is what?
This is him being inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame.
Oh, thank you. It's hard to capture it. I'm thankful. I'm so happy for the city of Indianapolis to host this incredible game. Amazing honor. So happy to share it with Stanford. It's meant so much to me while I was there and since then. Great coaches, especially the players and teammates. I think football is the ultimate expression of team and team sport. And teammates give you so much. So I'm so thrilled, especially the class of 2012 Stanford University.
Here's the thing.
I forgot about his voice.
How could
you
reaches
forget?
out, he reaches out and he bites at a word. He talks and then his eyes light up and he mentions the team and. But here's the thing.
I love Luck.
I said this earlier, Kevin, and I think people thought that I was saying it as a critique. It's not at all. I think one of the great gifts of our Creator is the diversity of the minds and the brains of people. And there are people that we all encounter that you can look back at retroactively and say, they're probably like, as we now label it, on the spectrum to an extent, and there are varying degrees of that. And they're wonderful gifts and compliments to society. When I hear Andrew Luck speak, and when I think about Andrew Luck, part of, like, if you are on the spectrum, and there are varying levels of it, but there are areas when you are on the spectrum, two things that I think come into play. And I'm not a doctor by any stretch of the imagination, but I've been around people who are in that realm. And two of the real, I think, gifts that come with that is the ability to have a mindset or a thought process that is of interest to areas that other people maybe overlook. And in addition to that, not being completely aware of the way that you are seen in terms of your level of interest or your lack of channel of interest in an area that people would like to see it from you. And quite frankly, when it comes to football, I think Andrew Luck enjoyed playing it and enjoyed many aspects of it, but including the competition of it. But I don't think that he breathed, and slept and needed football, because he had other areas of interest that most people would find unique. But in addition to that, I think he was somewhat oblivious to how people saw his interests as being channeled differently than what they preferred for him. I think he was completely oblivious to how it was all perceived about him, which I think is kind of cool.
Chances Jim Irsay dials up Andrew Luck this week and checks in on Lucy Luck and how fatherhood is treating him?
That possibly. In terms of asking Andrew Luck if he's interested still in playing, that ship, I would think, sailed.
Well, you got to butter him up a
when
little
you
bit.
looked at him, but when you look at him, it's like clearly he is not working out to stay in football shape.
He looked like a guy that could beat Jacksonville to me.
Well, I mean, I would think that, like, Mark Dykton looks like a guy that could beat Jacksonville. Until Saturday, we would have said that, right?
Mark, didn't RG3 ask him about what he's up to? Will you play that?
We can't leave this without asking Andrew, what have you been up to? We haven't seen you. What have you been doing, man?
Oh, full-time daddy duty. It's and it's been a complete joy.
Short, sweet, the Luck laugh, all of it. So I caught up with Josh Chapman, former draft mate of his, who's now is on Alabama.
Alabama nose tackle, right?
For what it's worth, he did decline local interview requests. So they put him on the Jumbotron, Jake, during the game. And I was kind of curious how that reaction would go. They interviewed, remember Roy Williams, the Oklahoma safety?
Yes.
Made that great play against Chris Sims in the Red River shootout. So they put those two up there, and they just kind of had an MC during one of the breaks, basically asked them the same questions that you just heard. And, like, there was a very, obviously the prominent crowd is Georgia and Alabama fans, so they don't get the Luck last time in Lucas Oil Stadium what happened. But there were a couple people I did hear chirping about, like, get him off my screen, blah, blah, blah.
People need to get over it. It's been
this and that. All right, Jim Irsay's comments yesterday to Mike Chappell. We'll ask Joel Erickson from the Star his thoughts on that and what Frank Reich had to say, or maybe didn't say, about Carson Wentz yesterday. 9 o'clock hour coming up on 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
That was the most embarrassing and worst loss in the history of the Indianapolis Colts. That was complete and utter foobar. That's what that was. Coach Yost, remember the Titans, leave no doubt. You know what they accomplished yesterday besides just flat embarrassing themselves, which is exactly what they did. They left out on the future direction of this team.
The Ride with JMV.
Weekdays 3 till 6
on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Turn to the experts at Howald Heating and Carrier for all your heating needs. Howald Heating, Air, and Plumbing, where coming home never felt so good. Online at howaldheatingandair.com.
Home values have skyrocketed.
And Golden Oak Lending can save you money with their low 1.875% rate.
I'm James Hawkins, president of Golden Oak. With our low rates and your increased equity, you can make home improvements or pay off debt.
Woo-hoo! Plus, skip your next 2 mortgage payments. Call 317-706-GOLD today.
Golden Oak Lending cured my blues.
NMLS 114937. 1.875% fixed. 2.952% APR. FHA 15-year mortgage with 20% equity and approved credit.
Bet on more than the final score with one game parlay bet at BetMGM. One game parlay is an exciting feature designed to help you make selections within a single game from over 400 bet types, including team and player props. Log into your BetMGM account and create your best parlay before the game starts. New to BetMGM? You can sign up today and make your first bet risk-free up to $1,000 with the bonus code THEFAN. That's all one word, capital T, capital F. You can place one-game parlay bets on football, basketball, and more. Plus, you'll earn M Life rewards that you can redeem for rooms and dining at any MGM resort. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. Must be 21 years of age or older to wager. Indiana only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable free bets or site credit. Free bets expire 7 days from issuance. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-9-WITH.
The Eagles Hotel California Tour.
Welcome to the Hotel California.
Live in concert with a full orchestra.
Take it.
Performing their iconic album, Hotel California, beginning to end, plus a greatest hit set. The Eagles, Gainbridge Fieldhouse, March 22nd. Get tickets Friday, January 14th at 10 a.m. at Ticketmaster.com.
93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
WIBC HD2, W298BB, WIBC HD3, W228CX, Indianapolis.
The Pacers and Celtics face off again at the Fieldhouse tomorrow evening at 6:30 on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. It's Kevin and Query.
If we die together.
Yeah,
We can get it done. You can get it done. What's more, you gotta get it done.
On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
It is a chilly morning, but a good-looking morning here in Indianapolis. If you are driving down Capitol on your way in, you're going to have plenty of time to enjoy it. Because as I mentioned earlier, all of a sudden you're going to get to about Methodist Hospital southbound. It's like, wait a minute, there's a dude in the middle of the road directing traffic. What's going on? Before you know it, rerouted. That's what happened to both Kevin and myself this morning. It is the alphabetically appropriately alliterated Kevin and Query program here on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Joining us now on the Payless Liquors guest line, he is Colts beat writer for the Indianapolis Star. Joel Erickson joins us. And Joel, reality is this: Capitol Avenue rerouted this morning unexpectedly, and that to me seems symbolic of the Colts because all of a sudden nobody guessed there'd be a guy in Jacksonville directing traffic and rerouting things. Man, this week got a lot more interesting than you probably anticipated, right?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I was trying to come to grips with on Sunday night while I was flying back from Jacksonville back to Indy was just, they win the game in Arizona. That was Christmas. That wasn't that long ago. I haven't gotten my Christmas tree to the recycling spot yet. Like it seems like whiplash for it to turn around from where they were at the end of the game in Arizona to where they are now. And I think, pretty quickly you realize that everyone kind of realize that if there's that much whiplash, there's something that has to be done here. The difference is, like in 2019, we all kind of had to deal with the slog of it all the way down the stretch. This one was just the rug ripped out from everybody.
Joel Erickson from the Star is with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. And Joel, I wanted to get to Jim Irsay's comments to Mike Chappell from yesterday. I'll read off this Irsay quote. "One thing that's clear is changes need to be made," end quote. He also was very clear in that Frank Reich and Chris Ballard do not fall into that category. If you had to define potential changes, I know it's a very difficult thing to do on January 11th, but luckily you're a good sport, so I think you'll play along. What exactly do you think those changes could possibly be discussed?
Well, I think you start with, and I admittedly don't know what the option is here, the obvious option to go get somebody, but I think the obvious one is quarterback. The last time that they were this bad down the stretch passing, it just felt like Jacoby Brissett. Like I've been kind of feeling that for a little bit, but then the Arizona game happened and threw me off for a little bit, and then the Jacksonville game, it just felt like Jacoby Brissett's collapse, and that they like Jacoby Brissett as much as anyone can like a person, just as an organization, and they found a way to move on, even though there was a big cap hit. So I think quarterback is one of the ones. I don't know who's available or who they can get with the resources they have, and it doesn't feel like it's going to be a big quarterback movement type of offseason in terms of big ones, but I think that's one place to start. And then the other thing is, Irsay said changes. I've been expecting, even before Mike's report, which great work by Chappell, by the way, but I've been expecting Ballard to come out and say there have to be changes made, because that's what he said in 2019, after the 2019 season, when they went 7-9, was that when we don't get it done, there have to be big changes, and some of it has to be hard. I think you're definitely going to have to do pass rush, because there's probably going to be some coaching staff turnover. It's hard to know internally, what they feel like specifically that's got to be. But yeah, I wasn't. Let's just put it this way: I wasn't surprised to see Irsay say that, because I was expecting Ballard to say that whenever we talked to him at the end of the season.
Two changes that also popped into my head. Obviously, Wentz is the big one. When you say staff changes, does that go as high as potentially Matt Eberflus? And then secondly, do you think when Irsay's saying, demanding a little bit more accountability, does that fall into Chris Ballard, you need to change your approach with free agency?
So with Eberflus, I felt like Frank Reich's press conference that they felt like some of their changes did pretty well.
Yeah, he did not even sniff ripping the defense I asked him about the pass rush, and you would have thought, his kids were part of the pass rush with, his comments on that.
Yeah. That kind of made me think that maybe there's nothing happening there. The free agency thing, I do think that there's going to be an alteration there, and it's partially the changes, and it's also partially because that's what's happened in the past. When they've made the playoffs, they haven't done much in free agency other than bring back their own guys. What they did after 18, it's what they did after 20. But in 19, when they didn't make the playoffs and Ballard promised change, they went out and traded for DeForest Buckner. And I don't know if it's hard to predict a Buckner-like coup in terms of pulling something off. But they've got to supplement the drafted core. The drafted core is good. Like there's a lot to like about the players they've drafted, but they've got to find a way to supplement that and fill in some of these spots. So Buckner isn't trying to rush the passer essentially by himself for most of the season. There's spots like that. Wide receiver, if T.Y. Hilton retires, and then at tight end, if Jack Doyle retires, you're going to have more spots open than you can fill in the draft. They're going to have to do some stuff in free agency this year. And I'm kind of expecting it, because we've seen them since Reich's been here. I think you probably throw 2017 out, even though I wasn't here yet. But the way they reacted to 2019, I think, is probably the best way to assume it's going to look a little bit this year.
Joel Erickson, by the way, is our guest. He is on the Payless Liquors guest line. Here's my question for you, Joel. I want you to, as somebody who's around it, as the Colts writer for the Indy Star, give me your analysis on this statement. The real trick for the Colts is, from a financial standpoint, if they decide that they need to go one more year with Carson Wentz, if that were the case. The challenge there is if Wentz gets one more year to prove he can be the guy, he, along with everyone, is going to know that he's under a very heavy microscope for that year, and I think he's too emotionally fragile to handle that. Your thoughts?
I'm gonna go a weird way with this. He seemed, at least from Hard Knocks and from everything we've heard, it seemed like he was in a pretty good place this year, and it still wasn't good enough. And so it almost, for me, I think the bigger fear is that if it's one more year, is not that he's emotionally fragile enough to not handle it. For me, the larger fear is that he's just not good enough overall, and that if you give him one more year and they put more pieces around him, they catch fire. His shortcomings seem minimized, maybe the way they seemed after the Arizona game when they were 9-6, and then you get tricked into maybe going further with him than you should based on what happened this season. I think that's an even bigger issue if you bring him back. Is what happens if it looks good, and then you trick yourself into a longer period there than you should, because. I mean, honestly, emotionally fragile or not, like whatever happened, he felt like he was in a good spot this year, and the passing game still cratered. He still cratered down the second half of the season. So it almost, production-wise, it almost doesn't matter what his mental state is.
Do you believe he's their quarterback next year?
I think there's a real chance that there's change. That's what I've been thinking for a couple days now. But the hard part is I just don't know who the next guy is. That's the hard part for me. That's the part I haven't figured out. But the stuff Reich said, the way they reacted, their history with what happens when the passing game looks like this, it bothers Frank Reich to be bad in the passing game. I don't think people maybe get that, but like when he says, I've always been good in the passing game, it bothers him deeply to not be good throwing the ball down the field.
That's Jim Mora saying we stunk.
Right.
I mean, in Frank Reich's terms, that's what it is. Joel Erickson covers Colts for the Star, is with us here on Kevin and Query. Couple points that I thought you brought up that were great. I'm a little worried about the scar tissue from Philly with Wentz. Is it still there? Is it unfixable mentally, which impacts, I think, some of his physical fundamentals and things like that. The other point is, and I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into Reich's comments yesterday, Joel, but it just seems like Frank goes out of his way to find praise or not heap criticism towards any sort of player, particularly quarterbacks, particularly Wentz. And yesterday, boy, I'd have to go back and look at the transcript, but I don't remember him really sniffing any. It sounded so much more Brissett-like to me. And I don't know, Joel, maybe I was 5% chance that Wentz is gone at 5 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. And as I sit here Tuesday morning, I think I'm pretty close to 50-50, although I agree with you. I don't know who the other answer is.
No, if you look at the stuff they said, if you look at the stuff he said and then you go back and look at the Brissett press conference, it's really, really familiar. We weren't good enough in the passing game. We know that the quarterback gets too much of the, praise and too much of the blame, but it's everybody and everything like that. That's the stuff they said. That's the stuff that they were saying right after the Jacoby Brissett season ended. And I'm with you. I think they're sitting there going, we can't have a season where we throw the ball like. I mean, I thought one of the most revealing comments was Frank saying, listen, we've got Jonathan Taylor, and I want to emphasize Jonathan Taylor, but not to the point that we did this year. We were too run-centric. And he knew that in season. They do that stuff in season. He said to us that they self-scout and they figure stuff out. He's constantly thinking about tendencies and how to break those tendencies, which means he just felt like they couldn't throw it. And that's a big problem. I thought that was maybe a more revealing answer about what he felt about his offense.
Agreed.
And what it could do than anything.
Joel Erickson is our guest at the Indianapolis Star. Joel, Chris Ballard, Frank Reich, do you believe that either one of those two in the back of their mind has any insecurity about their job status?
I think that there's probably, I think that there's some, and I think it's because they're both smart people who've worked in the NFL a really long time, and they know how this works. Not for this year. I don't think they're insecure about their job status for this year. Obviously, Mike Chappell's report kind of put any speculation on that to bed, and basically Frank talking yesterday did. But they know. Frank said that's the thing about the NFL. If you don't win, things will happen. They're aware of that, and I think every NFL person is probably aware of that more to a degree than I think that we people who aren't in the NFL realize. It's one of the things that keeps coming up when covering the NFL is these guys know that things change fast and things, because they've all been a part of it in one place or the other, where it was going one way and then it didn't go the other way, and then it turned the other way quick, and then it was over. So I think they're both aware of that. Yeah.
Joel, last one from me. In my opinion, considering the resources invested into this position group, no position group on this roster has underperformed more in the Ballard era than the pass rush. Are you putting more of that on not finding the right guys with all the draft capital invested, or on the defensive staff for not developing these guys?
More on finding and the developing part, I think, is part of it. And I think that one of the things I want to ask, it's always hard in these press conferences to know if you're going to get to all the questions you want to ask. But one of the things I want to ask is early on, was there a disconnect between what the staff wanted coaching-wise and what they were drafting? Because Kwity Paye is the first one that they drafted who was good enough against the run right away that he could play a lot and learn. Kamoko Toure, Ben Banigou, these guys can't get on the field in first and second down because they're not really built to play the run. And that clearly matters to this defensive staff. So is there a disconnect? Was there a disconnect in the first 3 years between who they were drafting and what the coaching staff wanted? But then on top of that, I mean, some of these guys, like Banigou, from all accounts, has worked really hard in the offseason, but then you get to training camp and you get to the games, the preseason games, and it just doesn't happen. They haven't found players who developed or turned into anything. And I think a lot of it is in the identification, and they just haven't done a good job of drafting those guys in the second. Now it is really hard to get pass rushers outside the first round, but if you're going to do it, they just haven't gotten the right group.
Joel Erickson of the Indianapolis Star, going to be plenty busy here over the next couple of weeks. As a matter of fact, Joel, let me finish with this for you. In your mind, it's so fascinating to me because covering the NFL, it's always kind of regimented, right? Like 1 week to the next to the next. So many people, I think probably even inside West 56th, thought that it would be covering the playoffs this week. That's not the case. So what do you think is the next step in the Colts news cycle? Or are we done with it until, all of a sudden it's, okay, now we're going to talk draft and, we don't have a first-round pick and et cetera?
Well, after the Ballard press conference, which is always very revealing, the next, I think, two big things to drop is what happens with T.Y. Hilton and Jack Doyle. Because those decisions usually come. I think Costanzo's kind of lingered a little while before he retired, but those decisions usually come sometime in January.
You think their decisions are attached at the hip, or do you think they'll simply consult with one another? And it seems like Hilton is more dependent upon Doyle's thoughts than Doyle is on Hilton's.
I agree with that. And Jack yesterday, just, when I asked him, why is retirement coming up, his answer about how tough it is physically, that, I don't know. It felt like that was a revealing answer.
I think both are done.
Well, T.Y., I mean, we all kind of felt that way with T.Y. because he admitted that after the neck that he was thinking that way, And I think that's the next big news. I mean, I think sometimes we can be prisoners of, what's recent, and neither of them broke 30 catches this year or whatever. Obviously, Doyle was a great blocker, but, that's two just pillars of the organization that would be retiring if they both decide to retire. That'd be two of them right at the same time. That's huge. That's a huge deal. I mean, you think about all the stuff we saw on Hard Knocks with the leadership place T.Y. Hilton occupied on the scene. Now, I think you got Buckner and guys like that who can do that, but that's a big deal if we're right and those guys are ending up retiring.
At Joel A. Erickson on Twitter. Joel, great job with all your coverage all year long, and appreciate you joining us here. What's been a already interesting 48 hours for you in the Colts postseason. So thank you for the time.
Yeah, always appreciate you guys having me on.
That's Joel Erickson right there on the Payless Liquors hotline. Jake, just quickly to kind of map out your question that you asked Joel, You've got the Ballard press conference, which I believe is Thursday. I'd assume the retirement decisions for T.Y. Hilton and Jack Doyle would follow at some point the rest of the month. You get into February, I think that's when you're making your in-house free agency decisions. About 6 to 7, maybe a few more starters hitting free agency. The Combine, to close out the month of February, could be the final one here in Indy. And then free agency with the Colts having, I think right now, around $50 million. Again, and I wouldn't say necessarily important, but at least some notable in-house free agents. And then obviously the draft will play after that. But for the next 2 months, retirements, your free agent decisions, do you make any staff changes? And I think if you're going to get an answer on Carson Wentz, my guess is that is a late February, kind of early March timetable.
Cannot believe, I mean, honestly, like I'm stunned we're having this conversation, to be honest with you, 3 weeks ago. You know what I mean? Although you could kind of see Wentz starting to regress a little bit. And maybe someday we'll know the answers.
I'm more stunned by missing the playoffs than we are having the Wentz conversation.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think they're kind of hand in hand, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It would have been difficult making the playoffs to having, really part ways with Wentz, but I think if you critically evaluate things, he was the one. And the passing offense, I don't want to act like it's all Wentz that was holding this team back.
Speaking of the playoffs, the college football playoffs came to an end last night at Lucas Oil Stadium. That headlines our Big O Tire Sports Center update.
The Sports Center update on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan is presented by Big O Tires, the team you trust.
Kevin, last night, Stetson Bennett became just the second walk-on quarterback to defeat a Nick Saban-coached college team, leading his Georgia Bulldogs to a 33-18 win over Alabama. Congratulations to Georgia, their first national championship in 41 years. Do you know the other walk-on quarterback that defeated a Nick Saban-coached team? Kevin Bowen.
Do not. Is that a pop quiz question?
Is that a pop quiz question, Scotty? Is it really? Oh, what the hell? I'm giving up. I haven't read the pop quiz yet. Scotty is irate.
Yeah, pacing.
Should I not give
quickly.
the answer then yet, Scotty? I should not give the answer.
How about the team?
Michigan.
Settle down just a little bit.
I will tell you, it's the son of an Evansville native.
Stetson Bennett. Is there a more Georgia name?
Stetson Bennett, yes.
Right.
A wonderful young lad.
He'll take over the estate one day.
That is pretty much what it sounds like, isn't it?
He made some big plays, though, in the fourth quarter there. And finally, it was kind of a game of who was going to crack in the red zone first, and eventually Georgia was the one that made Alabama crack a big field goal block in the third quarter. James Cook, I think the younger brother of Dalvin Cook, ripped off a 67-yard run. And that was the play Georgia needed to get things going. And finally, I think the injuries that Alabama had at wideout, Bryce Young just could not make up for that. And that Georgia defense, Jake, I think we finally saw what it is all about. The depth of that unit in particular, and just the speed. I'm in that building last night. I'm like, this is just different football, man. These different athletes.
I mean, are you kidding me? Like, look, Alabama has an unfortunate, obviously, injury in the second quarter.
Yeah, James
Williams. They just bring another receiver in that's like, oh, this guy's the number 40 recruit from his class, a year later. I mean, the speed and just the sleek nature of the athletes on display for both Alabama and Georgia last night. I thought Alabama felt like they were kind of in control, certainly through it was 9-6 at one point, and it felt like it was 23-3,
But just couldn't convert in the red zone.
Correct.
Just squandering opportunities there. So now, in the history of the college football playoff, 8 years, we've had 5 champions: Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, LSU, and then Georgia joins that group there. I thought about 80-20 in the building last night, Jake.
In favor of Georgia?
Georgia-Bama.
And I got on my Georgia shirt today.
I don't know if you walked around downtown much over the past 48, 72 hours, but I felt that even going into the stadium. It was a Georgia frat party everywhere I turned.
I will say this. From my experience, the Alabama and Georgia fans, both contingencies that I ran into, seemed like really good people that were here to have a good time, and we certainly hope they enjoyed our city while they were here. Last night, Celtics over the Pacers, 101-98 out in Beantown. Those two will hook up on Wednesday at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Lance Stevenson did have 14. Domas Sabonis, a triple-double, 11 points, 23 rebounds, and 10 assists, but not enough. The combo of Jaylen Brown, who had 26 and 15, and Jason Tatum, 24 and 12, too much for Boston.
Up 4,
last
right?
night.
40 seconds to go and couldn't finish it off.
I know. I watched into and then leading into and passed into the overtime. And they got down 5 in the overtime, and you kind of knew then what the result was going to be. Purdue supposed to be in action tonight against Michigan, but that game has been postponed because it was an outbreak with Michigan, right?
Correct. Yes, outbreak with Michigan. So that was a 9 o'clock tip scheduled. So they will have Nebraska on Friday. A name that I want to mention yesterday, Jake. I know we didn't get a lot of time to do that, but Mason Gillis for Purdue against Penn State. Talk about a guy that I think, and I've
kind of saved him, right?
I've been at fault for this, just labeling him a glue guy. Boy, he hit some big shots and isn't afraid to take some big shots as well. So he does a lot of stuff that doesn't show up in the box score, but also does some stuff that indeed does show up there. So I think the Newcastle product has given Purdue some really, really important minutes, especially of late.
Kevin, I don't know if you know this or not, but Mason Gillis' dad, Bill Gillis, was a starting center of the North Central Panthers in 1988.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Went on to play at Ball State.
Center basketball?
Yep. He was like 6'5", Bill Gillis, and 275 pounds of like 4% body fat, solid muscle. He was like Dale Davis. That was fun during pickup basketball open gym for freshman Jake Query, let me tell you.
And I'm pretty sure Mason was a terrific baseball player as well. Kind of had a decision to make at some point in his high school career on what path to go down there. So no Purdue action until Friday. Indiana back on the floor Thursday. That is at Iowa. Keegan Murray for Iowa has been outstanding this season. Iowa's 11-4 on the year, just 1-3 in the Big Ten as Indiana looks for a road win, that elusive road win in the Big Ten.
By the way, speaking of elusive, my email's exactly that. Apparently the Outlook on my computer needs to be updated. It keeps shutting down on me. I'm trying to bring up the pop quiz. That's why I didn't know that was a question that I already spoiled earlier today.
I feel like it's a new week and just a new technological problem with Jake Query.
Let me tell you something. We'll get more into this, Kevin, on a different date. But, I've actually gone back taking classes at IU online.
Yeah, I'm happy for you.
One of the first classes I signed up for was an introduction to computers. I thought, well, this will be fun. It was introduction to computers, and it was like literally on the first day, it was like we were launching missiles from somewhere in North Dakota. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? I thought this was an introduction. Like, I thought it was going to be like, okay, you push Control, Alt, Delete.
Shift capitalizes letters.
Instead, it was like, okay, everybody, like, download the Scratch app and go ahead and send me a TikTok video by noon. And I'm like, I'm 50, man.
We're going to code on Wordle or
I did now.
One
of the challenging courses, Kevin, that I'm taking, I am taking Introduction to Broadcast Media.
Oh, wow.
And it's an elective I need. And one of the, now this, I was thrilled with this assignment. The first assignment we have is to avoid all electronic media for 48 hours. That's an assignment. Avoid radio and television for 48 hours.
You talk about an assignment I would fail.
I got to go down and let David Wood know I'm going to take a couple days off.
Now, are you going to Bloomington?
No, it's all online.
Okay.
Everything's online.
Well, I'm teaching a class next 8 weeks.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, can we...
Oh, how hilarious would that be if you had to teach Jake?
Now, do you think I get a sign off on my class roster? Because now that I think about it, I don't really know if...
What class are you teaching?
It's a multi-platform journalism class.
Okay. Does it involve a lot of the Scratch TikTok videos that I don't know how to do?
we are not talking
that
TikTok.
That could be a problem, right?
No, yeah, we are not doing that. But in all seriousness, I think it's really cool that you are doing that, and good luck in your studies. Boy, that's a lot to balance for you.
I know. I've got free time.
Pop quiz coming up next here. Jake hinted at a little bit of a question. We'll see what the answer is on the last walk-on to indeed beat Nick Saban. And give us a ring, 317-239-1070. Harlem Globetrotter tickets, right, Mark?
Family 4-pack, yep, for this Sunday.
Family 4-pack for this Sunday over at Gamebridge Fieldhouse. Dial us up, 317-239-1070.
Join us on The Fan and listen to Jason Hammer on You Bet with Bet Rivers, 7 to 8 p.m. on Thursdays, where you can get all the betting advice you would ever need.
Need more hires in the new year? Check out Indeed. With Instant Match, you'll receive a list of quality candidates when you sponsor a job. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
A successful team knows how to play. So take your staff to Royal Penn for your company's team building event and share the fun. Royal Penn Leisure Centers offer the perfect combination of food and fun for your company's team building event. At Royal Penn, everyone's on the team when you're bowling. But Royal Penn is more than just bowling. We also offer a lot more activities, all focused on fun. It's always comfy in our non-smoking facilities, and bowling and all of our games are guaranteed to generate team spirit and lots of cheers. Call 465-8484 today and let Royal Penn plan your company's team building event. They'll take care of everything, so all your gang needs to do is relax, unwind, and have fun.
Set 'em up, knock 'em down, send them flying, spinning round.
For more information, call 465-8484 or look us up at royalpen.com.
Royal Penn, bowling, bowling. Royal Penn.
Switch to Spectrum Mobile and get unlimited data for only $29.99 per month each when you get 2 or more lines. You could save hundreds on your mobile bill. Plus, there are no added taxes, hidden fees, and no contracts. Try the Spectrum Mobile Savings Calculator today, and in 3 easy steps, you'll see how much you could save. Visit spectrummobile.com/save. Offer valid for new customers on 2 or more unlimited lines. Spectrum Internet required. Restrictions apply. Visit spectrummobile.com for details.
Wildcard weekend just got wilder as FanDuel Sportsbook is hooking new customers up with 30-1 enhanced odds. Hey, it's Mark from Kevin and Query. That means you can bet $5 to win $150 on any team to win any wildcard game. Just sign up for FanDuel Sportsbook and make a deposit to claim your 30-1 enhanced odds. If I'm taking a team that I think is going to be a sure thing this weekend, I'm taking the Kansas City Chiefs over the Pittsburgh Steelers. But you could feel differently. There's no better place to bet the NFL playoffs than on America's #1 sportsbook. I love betting the NFL on FanDuel Sportsbook all season long because the app is safe, secure, and easy to use. And when you win, you get paid in as little as 2 hours. So don't miss your chance to win $150 on a $5 bet when you use promo code MARK when signing up. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app using promo code MARK and pick your wildcard team before kickoff. Again, that's promo code MARK, M-A-R-C. 21 and over and present in Indiana. New users only. $10 first deposit required. Must wager in designated offer market. Max bonus $150. Restrictions apply. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-9-WITH-IT.
We got our asses whooped yesterday on both sides of the ball.
Perhaps the most inexcusable regular season loss since moving to Indianapolis.
You traded the 13th overall pick for DeForest Buckner.
I don't know if he's made a play in the last 8 weeks.
If you're talking about it.
Your offensive line yesterday was easily their worst game of the season.
I totally agree with what you just said.
We're talking about it.
Jack Doyle, the average tight end. Where was he all day yesterday?
Your home for Indy sports. 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan. Have you studied? Can you handle the pressure? Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the Pop Quiz with Kevin and Query. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
When's the last time you used a pencil for anything?
Probably like marking a spot on the wall to like put a nail in.
Do you have to sharpen your pencil?
Luckily, it was a mechanical one, but I'm thinking, gosh, where would I find 0.5 or
Jake,
0.7
you'll need one
lead?
You'll need when we start taking Scantrons again.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
And then a pen for your blue book.
Oh, yeah. I remember the blue books. Let me ask you this. When you think about like the first day of school in first grade, which smell can you still smell? A, the plastic of like the Trapper Keeper. B, the scent of a freshly sharpened pencil. Or C, the faraway sounds of the custodian mowing the grass while the windows were open because there was no air conditioning.
Gosh, they're all such vivid. And my mom taught at the elementary school that I went to, so I was there early in the morning. So I definitely...
What elementary school?
Felt that. Cherry Tree, the Patriots, by the way.
See, mine was the sawdust that the janitor was throwing on the floor because the kid puked up his chocolate milk in the hallway.
Came in a goldfish cracker bag, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was full of sawdust. Yeah.
God.
What elementary school did you attend, Mark?
Crete Elementary.
Crete?
In Crete, Illinois, yeah.
And that was, what's the name of their teams?
The Warriors.
Why do elementary schools, Allisonville was, at that time, was the Explorers. Like, we didn't have teams, though. Why do we have a nickname?
I don't think we actually had it. Yeah, the high school was the Warriors. I don't think the elementary school actually had a mascot.
I forgot how big trappers were. Like,
Trapper
that was
keepers?
A big deal.
Oh, yeah, they were great.
Like, what trapper are you, rocking? And,
bring your starter jackets. What NFL team you rocking this year?
Yeah.
Who was your lunchbox?
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Real Ghostbusters, those kinds of things.
Kevin?
I think we were more in the brown bag camp.
Oh, that's lame.
Okay.
That's a lame
You were a
one.
cool kid, yeah. I had an NFL lunchbox. I still have it, actually. JMV collects lunchboxes. Did you know that?
Does he?
Yeah.
You've got to bring that lunchbox in.
Oh, you want to see my NFL lunchbox?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll bring my lunch tomorrow in it. I don't eat lunch, but if I did, I'd bring it in my lunchbox. I don't have the thermos.
Jake, who's eating this pop quiz?
What number do you want to go with here?
Alabama. No, Georgia. I'm trying to think of a Georgia number. Bennett was what, 13? First national title since 1980. I guess let's reward fast fingers.
Eddie.
Eddie, how are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Hey, Query, of all the people on the radio, you would be most sympathetic to my plight here.
Okay.
I called in about a year ago, and I say I got 4.5 out of 5 on the quiz. Quiz question was, how many Colts are in the Hall of Fame? I said 15. The answer was 17 because of Tony Dungy and Bill Polian. I feel I at least deserve the home version of the game. 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, you got pretty.
You got screwed.
You
Eddie.
got screwed on that. Yeah.
And I'm glad that it's not fresh on your mind anymore.
That's the good thing is you've gotten past it, right?
Right.
Eddie, do you know the only member of the Football Hall of Fame that was born in Indianapolis?
I do not.
Do you know that, Kevin? Well, I'll give it at the end of the quiz. We'll call that the ultimate tease.
I was going to say Rod Woodson, but he was not born in
I will give you question number 1 here, Eddie. Stetson Bennett last night became the first former walk-on starting quarterback to defeat a Nick Saban-coached college team since which of the following? A, Baker Mayfield, B, Brian Griese, C, Austin Davis, or D, Brandon Weeden?
Brandon Weeden.
Okay.
All right, number 2. Name the quarterback who led Georgia to its only previous college football national championship. A, Zeke Bratkowski, B, Fran Tarkenton, C, Buck Belul, or D,
Bellew, yeah.
D, Eric Zier.
C.
Okay. Question number 3, Eddie. Who won a national championship in football as head coach at Alabama between the reigns of Bear Bryant and Nick Saban? It happened in 1992. Was it Gene Stallings, Bill Curry, Ray Perkins, or Mike DeBose?
Mike DeBose.
You sure about that?
I'm an Ohio State fan. I really don't care about Alabama.
We'll speak slowly. Levi's are a popular manufacturer of what article of clothing?
Jeans.
Okay. So you want to go?
Jeans.
Okay. Gene Stallings he goes with. Kevin, go ahead.
Number 4, Joel Embiid scored 31 in the 76ers win at Houston last night. Embiid has scored 30 or more points in Philly's last 7 games. 1 game shy of the franchise record. Name the 2 Hall of Famers who had 8 straight 30-point games for the Sixers. Honestly, you can just name one of them.
Allen Iverson.
Last question here, Eddie. Ooh, can you name the other one, Eddie?
Moses Malone.
Excellent guess, actually.
Very good guess.
On this day in 1967, Eddie, the city of San Diego was awarded an NBA franchise. What was the nickname of the franchise that later moved to Houston where Moses Malone played for them? A, the Clippers, B, the Toreros, C, the Conquistadors, or D, the Rockets?
I'll go Conquistadors.
Moses Malone, the Houston Conquistador. Moses Malone, hell yeah. The Conquistadors, the 94-95 NBA champion Houston Conquistadors.
Eddie, I don't think this is going to be as memorable as the...
Vernon Maxwell, Houston Conquistador. Vernon Maxwell. Okay. Brian Griese, by the way, was the correct answer, was the last former walk-on. Actually, I think he said Brandon Weeden, didn't he, Mark? Come on. Get it together, Mark.
In my opinion, that sucked.
That's right.
Thank you.
All right.
You don't get to come back tomorrow. You don't even get a lousy copy of our home game. You're a complete loser.
You lose. Good day, sir.
Tony, get your bag and get the hell out of here.
Buck Bellew was the quarterback in 1980 that handed off to Herschel Walker an awful lot when the Georgia Bulldogs were national champions. Gene Stallings in 1992. I believe they defeated Miami of Florida. Is that correct, Scotty? There was no playoff back then. Yeah, it was just the BCS championship or whatever they call it. Wilt Chamberlain and Allen Iverson was the answer for question number 4 and question number 5. And I always found this fascinating. That San Diego, the Houston Rockets, I always assumed, Kevin, that the Houston Rockets were named that because of NASA. And in reality, they moved to Houston from San Diego and were named the Rockets because of a rocket manufacturing facility in Southern California.
I did not know that.
They moved in 1971. By the way, the one Hall of Famer that was born in Indianapolis, Indiana. Scotty, do you know the answer to this? Chris Dolman is indeed the correct answer. Look at Scotty. Look at the big brain on Scotty. That's impressive, man.
Harlem Globetrotter tickets for Eddie. We'll be giving those away all week long, and the Pacers on a Western.
Are they still on Gilligan's Island?
Conference.
Do we know?
Trip.
Did they get the Globetrotters off Gilligan's Island?
I'm not sure on that.
Kevin has no idea what I'm talking about.
Sunday, what is that? Sunday afternoon, Mark, at Gamebridge Fieldhouse?
Correct. Yep.
For those Harlem Globetrotters tickets, we're giving away a family 4-pack each and every day with the pop quiz. We come back here one final time, Kevin and Query. I got a question on the Colts and running it back. We'll get into, I think, an interesting TV nugget about the past year in sports. Kevin Bowe and Jake Query, 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
Did you know Amazon provides ways of working that fit your lifestyle? They know you value your time outside of work, juggling family, school, friends, or other activities. That's why they offer a variety of shifts that work for you. There are full-time, part-time, and even temporary opportunities that can work with your schedule, with great starting pay and sign-on bonuses. If you want a career that fits and adapts to your lifestyle, head to Amazon.com/apply. Amazon is a proud equal opportunity employer.
Hun, have you seen this internet bill? Why'd the price go up?
I don't know. Did you change anything?
No. Did you? You switched us to those fancy coffee beans. Maybe you're on a roll, making everything more expensive. Did you suddenly inherit money you didn't tell me about?
Whoa.
If your internet bill is giving you trust issues, you're not a bad partner. You just need a straightforward price.
Maybe we switch to decaf.
Get AT&T Fiber. Equipment fees are included, and with no price increase at 12 months, there are no surprises. Limited availability in select areas. Visit att.com/faster.
This is for the men who never settle, the ones who believe only quitters end a game in a tie, the type of guys who choose the bar with the biggest TVs to overcompensate for theirs at home. This is the Lodge mentality. This is Twin Peaks.
Are you a fan of Twin Peaks? Sign up for their e-club to stay up to date on all things Twin Peaks and score free stuff. Signing up is easy. Visit TwinPeaksRestaurant.com/Peaks-Club. Twin Peaks. Eats, drinks, scenic views.
At Kroger, fresh groceries are our thing, so we check your delivery order for freshness at every step from farm to store and pick and pack every veggie in your free pickup order with care, because we treat your food the way we'd want ours to be treated. We're fresh every day, so shop anyway. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Free pickup on orders of $35 or more. Restrictions may apply.
Save more on natural and organic items. Just clip your digital coupons on our app and use them up to 5 times in one transaction with your card. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Do you really want to go through another year with that awful joint pain? Well, don't do it. Resolve right now to get yourself moving again for 2022. I'm Kevin Bowen, and it is time to call our friends at QC Kinetics. Non-surgical regenerative treatments for joint pain. We're talking lasting results using natural biologics. No surgery, no pain meds, no steroids, and no downtime. This is really exciting stuff. Regenerative treatments that actually encourage your body to heal itself using highly concentrated natural biologics. Patients rave about it for hip pain relief, knee pain, shoulder, back pain, all of those things. Don't let them keep giving you steroids. Don't let them tell you that surgery is your only option. Get a free second opinion at QC Kinetics and do it now. Imagine your life in 2022 without pain. So do us a favor. Call the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics. You will not regret it. 463-235-7160. That is 463-235-7160.
Hi, it's Steve Mann. Have you heard the commercials for the Mark Patrick Stop Smoking seminars? And they said only $49.99 and it could work for you. So I thought, that's not even a week's worth of smoking. So I went. And guess what? It did work for me. You know, my friends and family are still amazed. I quit smoking. I didn't have cravings, anxiety, or weight gain. Listen, I don't know how it works, but I know it works because I'm living proof, and it's 100% guaranteed. So what do you got to lose? I'll tell you what you got to lose. A very bad habit.
Join Mark Patrick seminars and stop smoking now without cravings, irritability, weight gain, or your money back. Only $49.99 guaranteed. Designed to work without anxiety, irritability, or weight gain for only $49.99. Become a non-smoker. That's right. Seminar times are 8 to 10 p.m. on Thursday, January 20th at the Holiday Inn Hotel in Carmel, and 2 to 4 p.m. on Saturday, January 22nd at the La Quinta Inn and Suites Hotel in Indianapolis. Registration 30 minutes before seminar.
Soccer Saturday featuring Indy 11. If this is your football, this is your show. Saturday at 9 on The Fan. You're listening to Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
16 minutes before the top of the hour, here are, Eddie had mentioned it, the Hall of Fame members of the Colts, Baltimore or Indianapolis, are Edgerrin James, obviously Indianapolis, Art Donovan, Bill Polian, Don Shula, Eric Dickerson, again Indianapolis, George Young, Gino Marchetti, Jim Parker, Joe Perry, John Mackey, Johnny Unitas, Lenny Moore, Marshall Falk, Indianapolis, Marvin Harrison, Peyton Manning, Raymond Berry. The curveball that I think gets a lot of people, Richard Dent, because he played here, I believe, just 1 year in 96. Ted Hendricks, Tony Dungy, and Weeb Eubank are members of the Hall of Fame affiliated with the Colts. And for
Do you think
those,
Reggie goes in this year?
Boy. Do you think he's a Hall of Famer? I guess that's a better question. I think he's...
Yeah, I do.
Do you really?
I think his postseason resume is what will push him into the Hall eventually. I always thought it was a joke that Marvin had to wait 3 years. I thought Marvin should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Well, for those that are unfamiliar, by the way, because I know like when Peyton went in, people are like, well, is he going to go in as a Colt or a Bronco? In the Football Hall of Fame, it just lists teams of service. It does not matter.
No, I think Reggie's Hall of Famer. I think you could make an argument that Mathis is more of a Hall of Famer than Freeney.
I would agree with that. I think partially because I think Mathis elevated once Freeney was gone.
That, but I point to the strip sacks. Mathis, I believe, still holds the NFL record for most strip sacks in a career. I mean, you talk about plays that change games. It's not just the sack itself. It's getting the ball as well.
Who is the Harold Baines of Football Hall of Famers?
I think there's some... Is it Sam Mills, Scotty, that's like a finalist for like the 20th year or something?
But who's the Hall of Famer that people are like, really? That guy's in?
I mean, I'm sure you can find like a version of Sam Mills like over the last...
You know who I think...
like 10 years.
I'm going to look up this guy's numbers. And I think this player bodes well for Reggie Wayne. I think James Lofton was a really good player. There was never a time during his career where I thought James Lofton was like an elite top 2 or 3 receiver in the game. Now, I could be wrong by that. I mean, I'm sure if you looked up his numbers, it'd be like, Jake, you're out of your mind. James Lofton was fabulous, but I thought of him as really good.
Yeah, I don't think Reggie would wow anyone of like, oh, unquestionably he's a Hall of Famer, but you look over what he produced, and I think still post Marvin, and I do think the postseason resume is a big, big part of it.
Isaac Bruce just got in, correct?
Sounds right. I believe
that also bodes well for him. Is Torrey Holt,
Andre Johnson? I think Devin Hester might be on this year's resume or this year's finalist list. Obviously, Hester, much more of a return man.
I always forget how it works, Kevin. When they announce the finalists, is there a cap on how many can go in?
Yeah, I think it's 15 to 5. So you got 15 right now.
Do you want the list? I have it in front of me.
And then you'll put 5 in on Super Bowl Saturday.
Jared Allen, Willie Anderson, Rondé Barber, Tony Baselli, Leroy Butler, Devin Hester, Torrey Holt, Andre Johnson, Sam Mills, Richard Seymour, Zach Thomas, DeMarcus Ware, Reggie Wayne, Patrick Willis, and Bryant Young.
That list bodes well for Reggie Wayne because on that list, the guys that immediately jump out to me, I think Jared Allen is a Hall of Famer. I think Tony Baselli is a Hall of Famer.
I think DeMarcus Ware has a resume that would get there.
Hester, I think, gets in. He's a special teamer.
Agreed. I would say Hester eventually.
So if you get 5 of those, you start. I mean, you can come up with 4 or maybe 5 that you would put in front of Reggie Wayne, but he's right there in the conversation.
But not necessarily this year. You know, I do think the Hall of Fame voters give a little bit if you've been a finalist for several years. Jake, at the end of each year, the Sports Business Journal comes out with the list of the top 100 telecasts. So the top 100 most viewed telecasts of the past year. How many do you think were sports?
So the top 100 watched television things for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Does this include streaming?
I believe it's just TV.
Okay. Of the top 100, I will say that 84 were sports related.
95.
Mm-hmm. That doesn't surprise me.
Sports related. How many NFL versus how many NBA, you think?
So 95 sporting events, and they are strictly NFL or NBA?
No, 95 sports. But how many do you think of the 95 were NFL? How many do you think were NBA?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So there are no other sports that are involved in this equation.
I'm just asking NFL or NBA.
Okay. I would say that 92 of them are NFL. 3 are NBA.
It's 75 NFL, no NBA, no Major League Baseball.
Okay, then college football. I'm sorry. I thought you said.
Yeah, no.
I misunderstood how you were asking.
No, I was just asking NFL and NBA. I'm just now getting into the other sports.
College football probably would have a few on there.
You had Olympics, 11 for the Olympics with this past year, and then college football had 7, and then 2 for right here in Indianapolis with the March Madness.
So 2 March Madness games.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the semifinal and the final, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess you had 2 semifinal games, but yeah, I would assume probably Gonzaga, UCLA would have been one of those games.
Sports in general has become so niche. You know, we're already starting to see more. I mean, isn't it Amazon that's going to put Al Michaels on to do NFL games next year?
They have the Thursday night package.
So
for next year, yep.
And you're going to start seeing more of that. I mean, I saw that IndyCar has a race this year that's on, I can't remember which one we're in, that's on Peacock. Toronto, yeah. The Toronto race is Peacock only. So, I mean, you know, the other thing that I think you're going to start seeing more of, Kevin, is people watching games. I know this sounds crazy. This would be the one thing that would be hard, I think, for people to do. But I think we're going to get to a point, maybe not now, but in 5 years, where you're going to say, like, oh, man, did you see the Bears-Cowboys? And somebody's going to go, don't tell me I haven't watched it. I streamed it. What? You know, I mean, really? I guess
like they would watch it on delay
on
or
demand. I really think that we're going to get to the point where people start doing that.
I still think live sports
I mean,
king, especially with gambling.
I don't disagree with you, except for that I think younger people are going to become so conditioned to watching things not on appointment time, like on their time. I know it sounds crazy.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I still think sports are always going to be
sports are the exception to the rule
in the live theater.
Again, I'm in agreement with you, but I'm telling you, like, it's kind of like, and I'm not trying to sound like grandpa here. It's like young people with driver's licenses now. They don't drive. Like, I couldn't, when I was in high school, I was 16 years old. Like, I knew everyone's birthday 1 month and 1 day after the birthday when they were getting their driver's license. I'll bet you now, like, I guarantee you there are people listening right now like, hey, he's right. My 17-year-old still doesn't have his license, has no interest in it, doesn't care. And, like, just live sports in general, Kevin, like, I think with younger people right now, live sports isn't as big a deal to them because they are so used to watching things just when they want to watch them. And they're not even a huge sports fan because they're locked into watching stuff on YouTube TV or whatever else. I'm telling you.
Does it shock you at all? No NBA Finals, no World Series, and you have 75 NFL games?
No.
The NFL's king.
It is crazy, though. I mean, think about it. I mean, 75 NFL games. So what? That's 50 some regular season games. I mean, you have 50 regular season NFL football games that outdraw an NBA Finals.
But here's the difference. Kevin.
Or a World Series.
Here's the difference. Major League Baseball plays a gabillion games. There is no necessity to watch it.
But I'm talking the playoffs. I mean, the playoffs
understood
are a different animal.
But even in Major League Baseball, what's the difference between the NFL and its playoff system and the NBA, the NHL, or whichever one I haven't said yet? Major League Baseball. It's single. Everything the NFL does is every game matters. Every game matters. Why is college football a huge deal? Why do people love it? Because every game matters. And in the NFL, in the playoffs, for example, one shot, man. It matters. And Major League Baseball. Hey, did you watch the World Series last night? I missed, what is it, Game 5? I got to take the kids to school, but now Game 6, I'll watch that. You know what I mean? Like
Still, but I mean, even you admitted you didn't watch the national title game last night to the point that you would watch probably an NFL game, right? It's crazy how the NFL is this much in demand compared to other professional sports leagues.
Well, the other thing the NFL does, though, is the NFL, the way it is set up and designed, is every team at any given year feels they have a chance because of the way it is set up, the way it's designed. You don't have the dynasties of. There are a lot of people that are like, Alabama again. Okay, why did people get tired of Tom Brady and the Patriots? Because they were winning all the time. Now, I'm not saying that hurt the ratings because the Super Bowl is an Americana cultural event at this point. But what's the number one narrative people had about why they didn't like the Patriots? Because they're tired of it. I'm just tired of it. I just think that the way...
But the ratings never followed that.
Again, because of what I'm talking about, because it's single elimination. Like you have to witness that. But the way that the sports audience digests things today is rapidly changing. It's changing by the day and the week. Now, the NFL, it's going to be the last to be affected. But sports in general is going to be affected. The NFL, to Mark's point, is such the 800-pound gorilla that they are going to be the most impervious to the winds of change in terms of audience ingestion. But I'm telling you, it eventually is going to happen where things are going to be, the networks are going to get away from everything being on network because networks are so terrified of being lost in the shuffle of losing out to the online era that you're starting to already see networks trying to push people towards Peacock and towards Paramount and towards Amazon and whatever else because they don't want to get left behind. So they're trying to be proactive in pushing people there even before people want to go there. And eventually in 5 or 10 years, I just think that's where it's going to be.
I think Jason makes a good point. Young people are so tied into social media that watching sports on demand delay would be ruined. I do think that's a part of it as well. Outside of the gambling,
that's possible
aspect to it.
Real quick Colts note: Matt Eberflus will interview with the Bears and the Jaguars.
Tom Pelissero says that Jags interview will be on Saturday. So what Jacksonville saw on Sunday, I guess they weren't too scarred.
We gave him a win already, so he's 1-0 in that aspect.
Yeah, exactly. Jump in the pool for us, Matt Eberflus. We'll get more into that. Off-season storylines for the Colts. We'll touch on that as well tomorrow. Pacers and Celtics, Wednesday tilt, and the final Hard Knocks episode tomorrow night. Kevin Bowen, Jake Query signing off. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
School is in session.
Sean Salisbury.